cart to hold it against you.
Yeah, I mean that's fine as well. We're nearly there. Well, I'm nearly there. You guys have been just waiting. I'm nearly done. You guys, yeah, you're just getting.
Nah, I've been fleshing out the spells.
Cool.
They've been waiting.
Well, they can carry on waiting, I suppose.
I've been plotting the downfall of mankind, but that's kind of something I do all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's reasonable.
How is mankind going to meet its end this time?
I'm thinking some sort of plague of robots, like locust-sized robots. It's going to be kind of thematic.
And here I was thinking of a plague of wasps.
Well, it could be robotic wasps.
I suppose. It depends on how painful their stings are.
If their stings are lasers, how painful is that?
Well, they won't actually be stinging that much. My sort of locusty sort of things. They're more going to go in and knock stuff off your shelves.
Oh god, that will just end everything.
I know, right?
So irritating, yeah.
Drive everybody crazy.
Why don't we divide up the party loot money now?
Good call.
Shouldn't we use that for like buying shit that the party needs?
Well, we've
I don't know.
kept some aside.
Yeah,
that's retained party items, and what I would say is we divide the platinum and the gold by 5, and we'll just leave whatever's the remainder there, and the rest we just divide up.
Okay.
Yeah, like in the cart, in the retained party items, there is already 100 gold and 100 silver.
Yeah, that's true.
So we don't need to keep anything else back. Like, that's our little buffer of, oh shit, like, we could really use with some extra ration packs in the thing. Or, oh, this item, like, broke while we were out adventuring.
So if we're just going to split up the platinum and gold, I make that to be 13 platinum each and 169 gold each.
13 platinum, 169 gold? Cool.
Yep.
Plus a couple extras. Sort of left over.
Yeah, there's a few remainders here.
Yeah, there'll be there'll be no gold left over. There'll be 1 platinum left over, and we'll just leave the silver there.
Do you want to edit that then, Ty?
I'll add it to my
I'll edit
reserves.
that.
Right. I'm adding those numbers to my sheet.
So it's not a bad little haul, to be honest, you guys. I mean, you're low level, started at level 1, basically a little more than peasants. Well, no, you're quite a bit more than peasants, but you know what I mean. You're not long out of your apprenticeship or whatever it is that you use to learn your trades. And you've come out of it with a couple of little minor magic items here and there. One not so minor magic item. You got some friends, got some rewards, made a bit of a name for yourself, survived, which is the important thing, strangely enough. And now just a little...
Just barely sometimes,
well, you did just go stomp into this area where we killed some goblins like 6 hours ago. No one could possibly have found their corpses, and got fucking double critted by 3 archers.
Which I'd like to point out, even though you double critted, I did live without you insta-giving me.
Yeah, you did take that. I'm just glad it wasn't anybody else who fucking...
Thunk.
I don't think any of us would be idiotic enough to just charge out in the middle of a fire.
This is the issue. You're the most durable, but you're also the only one who's likely to get into those situations.
Yes.
But that's fine.
Oh, fucking hell. Okie dokie. So, last session was just potting around town, selling some stuff, doing a little bit of role play, meeting a few people. You've pretty much sorted out the party loot. You've got your cart, you've got your sofa that's going to get work done on it. And you're now just chilling, basically.
Ty, do we want to set some side aside? You seemed to be interested in making sure we had the right fabric. Do you want to go with me while we do the fabric?
We need to go and do that.
Cool.
So yeah, really at this point, minus the sofa, It's pretty much just what your characters are likely to be doing in downtime, which I did mention briefly, and all you guys have well, most of you have got an idea of roughly what you're going to do, or at the very least, you know that your character doesn't know what to do in one particular occasion. Do you want to sort out the sofa thing now, then?
Yes.
Yeah, we could get that out of the way. Since that was also supposed to be a next stage.
And we are expecting to be contacted at some point by the merchant family people.
Yes, the servant of the house, the man of the house, as it were, did say that that Mr. Mallister would likely contact you later after arrangements had been done. He did imply quite strongly that it was a case of funerals, you know, dealing.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
so a few days
them.
probably.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to waste time.
We'd just like to point out, are we going to split the silver by 5? Because you didn't do that, Ty.
No, I figured we'd just leave the silver there and we'll keep it as retained party loot, and we can use it for paying for the sofa and.
If you really want, you can
Any
turn it into
preparation
7.
that we need
You can
for
turn it into 70
whatever we
gold
end up
and
doing next.
22 silver.
Hmm?
Turn it into 70 gold and 22 silver and add it to the party retained items.
Oh, we can just leave it there.
Yeah, no. If we're going to leave the 722 silver, we can leave it there. And it just means when it becomes a couple of thousand silver, that's when we'll split it or something like that.
Gotcha.
For money changing, can I just go ahead and say I get a bunch of my gold changed over to platinum? My money's actually starting to get to be a bit heavy right now.
Yes, because you're in the middle of a town. I have absolutely no problem with you doing this. It's quite easy to find a money exchanger. In fact, there's one right there that so you would have wandered around and happily have found one and probably led other people to that area as well.
Is it 10 gold per platinum?
Yes, it's always 10s per step, ignoring Electrum. Nobody likes Electrum coins. Don't even know why they exist.
Electrum.
I'm going to keep
Excellent.
some
I'm
gold
lighter.
on me.
Yeah, I just exchanged that myself. I'm back under my encumbrance.
Yep.
At this
me too.
point, I'm sure if you give Becky a
So
platinum
we
coin,
just
she won't
dumped a
know what
massive
it
pile
is.
of coins on the Hobbit. It's like, oh, it's too heavy.
Well, it's not
Basically,
like heavily encumbered, but it's like, oof, yeah, that's a bag.
you think Becky probably hasn't seen one, but they are significantly different than silver coins, so she probably wouldn't make the most obvious mistake of thinking it's just a silver coin. But yeah, it's because they're minted very differently. The silver coins and the copper coins tend to be quite plain, and any minting that's happened in there has worn very thin. There's a lot of foreign coins with different mints that have worn down. They even vary in size and weight, to be honest. People kind of, when you're dealing with copper coins, to a lesser degree silver coins, you tend to kind of look at the handful and think, okay, that's about right, kind of thing. You know, there's nothing that's particularly small in there, or if there is a copper coin that's particularly small, it'll be balanced out by a particularly big one, and you'll kind of mentally decide that, you know what, this is about right. When it comes to gold and platinum coins, they're much less wear and tear on them. They're minted far more firmly. You don't generally see any mints from outside of the current city-state area that you're in, that Cragsholm has minted. So yes, they're far more recognizable, far bolder, and slightly larger as well than the other coins. So yeah, they're harder to mistake, as it were.
I wonder how many gold coins it would take to smelt down into a ceremonial gold dagger or something.
There are actually specific conversions that you can do.
Oh, really? That's
Just
awesome.
get the mass and
Yeah, basically, 1 pound of gold is 50 gold. So basically, 50 gold pieces is approximately a pound of gold. And if you want to make a dagger, let's assume for the sake of argument. Actually, no, we're not going to assume that. What we're going to do, I might as well do this because I'm actually curious about it myself now. And then obviously gold weighs a bit more than iron, to say the very least. A dagger
Dagger is £1.
is 1 pound. So I would say 25 gold might make a solid a crude solid gold ceremonial dagger that wouldn't really do much. It'd probably work
Be
better as a
sharp for
club.
about 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anyone
Probably,
here
and
is.
probably still stab someone if you you know, attempted to stab with them.
But you're rapidly going to wear it down. It's going to bend a little bit over time.
I was gonna say,
So-
don't make a
harder
dagger
to swing.
out of gold. It's just dumb.
So what I'm hearing is we need to do this out of platinum.
Actually, technically, no. I did the math completely the wrong way around. It would weigh, the same dagger would weigh more, so it would probably be about 100 gold, and it would weigh 2 pounds. I would just say double. So 2 pounds to make a single gold dagger.
Yeah,
And
I
2
imagine
pounds
there'll
of
be
gold would
some
be 100
wastage.
gold.
See, this is why you find your ceremonial daggers in a dungeon, like I did.
It's very much true.
But a lot of ceremonial daggers,
Or just
like
make it
that
out
one,
of silver, Gus. It's a bit harder.
yeah, silver
No,
is
make it
harder.
out of platinum. Platinum is much harder.
Platinum is much harder, also even more expensive. I mean, if
I was
you
gonna say, you
make
make
it
it out
out
of
of
platinum, that's an
silver,
investment,
and then
but that's
decorate
sticking
it with a
around.
bit of gold.
Or-
on the handle.
like the ceremonial dagger that you guys have already found, make it primarily out of iron and then inlay it with things, etch it with things, and just make it
No.
fancy. But ultimately, it's just an iron dagger underneath.
No, it must be solid.
Oh, fine.
Solid on.
I
it's-
have a
it's
question.
Dude,
useless.
the gods from beyond do not necessarily respond well to just opulence, right? I mean, they appreciate taste.
They appreciate sacrifice.
Yes.
Well, sacrifice too. That's what you're giving them. But, you know,
Yes.
taste comes with that.
It's not
will
just
take
a
all
case
my
of...
platinum.
It's the equivalent of just dumping ketchup on there, putting it, I don't know, an affectionate garnish.
Put it like this: if a starving man puts a bowl of various fresh bread on an altar, walks away, sacrifice, gives that to his god and walks away, stomach growling, that is worth more to a god than a rich man throwing a couple of platinum coins on the way past.
Oh, certainly, certainly.
Because it is a sacrifice. He
But
is
imagine that
giving
depends
something
on the
he
god.
needs. Well, generally speaking, a god is the poor
I'm
guy.
sure there are
that's-
plenty of gods that are quite greedy and don't give a shit about the poor.
Agreed.
Mhm.
But it's not the case. It's not the case of caring about the poor. It's recognizing that this guy clearly is dedicated enough to give something that he really does need himself, but nevertheless give it to his god. Whereas the rich man's like a token gesture, platinum coin, got a big fucking sack of them back at home. Not a big deal. Not a sacrifice.
Just buying his way into heaven, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, he probably would as long as he doesn't do anything bad, but he's not going to get recognition from the god. The god's going to be like, okay, he's given another platinum like he does every fucking holy day of the month. Whereas the starving man, it's like, yeah, you might actually fucking die because of your dedication to your god. That's a sacrifice. But anyway, what are you guys doing? Sofa, I'm guessing, is the next thing.
Sofa time.
Yeah, sofa time. It's couch time. Anybody who wants to be with me on the couch purchase, I'm heading over to Trevor's now.
I'm happy to go couch surfing.
Is it Trevor or Travis? I keep forgetting.
Travis.
Travis. Damn it!
It's alright, it's Trevor now.
It's going to be Travis forever,
It's Travis. Okay, cool.
probably.
So yeah, I'm heading over to Travis's now, and oh goodness, well, it's alright. He kept mentioning the name of another person, but I'm sure
Gabby.
I'll have an opportunity to introduce myself. No, not... Gabby?
Gabby.
Gabby?
Yes.
Yeah, Gabby was the upholsterer.
Fantastic. So yeah, we're off to meet Gabby through Travis.
Okay.
And get shit upholstered.
You're going to get shit upholstered. Well,
Holstered up.
yeah. Okay.
Man.
I mean, you don't have to go that crazy with the whole thing, but I mean, yeah, sure, why not? Okay, so you wander over to Travis, the carpenter dude, and yeah, you come up to me, and he's there. He's starting up. I'm guessing you're going off in the morning after you've been sleeping overnight or whatever. And
I'm guessing we've met up at the Lamp and Lodestone because Orkon and Daniel were
Yeah.
at the other place.
yeah, I'm guessing you probably did. That's where you all are currently. But that's
The
just
Lamp and Lodestone is more central anyways. It makes a better meeting point
yes.
than the Jewel Inn.
Yeah, the Jewels Inn and Stables is right on the outskirts of town, whereas the Lamp and Lodestone is right in the kind of markets, not the
Which
market,
also
but the
means
merchant centre.
you can bring the cart.
Dun dun dun.
This is true. Do we need the cart yet, though?
No, I already dropped off the sofa with him, so we're just going to have it there. It depends on how long he's going to be working on it.
Now, here's the
We can
question,
always get the
guys.
cart later. Or just carry the sofa back to the cart.
If
I'm
you
sure
want
we
to carry
can
the sofa
manage
back to the
carrying it.
cart, then I will declare you a hero and happily share the couch with you.
There are quite a few of us. You know, if we can't carry a sofa halfway across town, there's something really wrong.
Hey, some of us have strength scores higher than 11. Others of us don't.
That's fine. You can just, like, be beneath the couch with your arms up, like, pretending like you're
You're
carrying
a
it, but not
halfling,
actually
you can
taking
sit
any
on the
weight.
couch and we'll still carry it across
Yeah.
town.
Cool beans. I like this plan.
Don't
Right.
forget, I can turn into a horse. So,
I keep forgetting that.
You got some issues, man.
nay.
We all knew this was coming.
I should have guessed.
I say thee nay.
Right then. You head over to Travis, where you dropped off the sofa before, and he had a little look at it, and his summary was, although obviously the upholstery is knackered, the overall structure wasn't too bad. You gave him some copper, and he's going to work on the frame. He mentioned that Gabby, who was someone he knew that did the upholstery side of things and the padding on furnitures, normally not something quite this size, but, you know, same principles apply, would be back in town today. Today is today, strangely enough. So you're going to head down there, as you've just done, to chat to this Gabby, or at least see what Travis says. You head down to the carpentry place, and you see him working on what actually looks to be not furniture, which is normally his thing. He's actually working on some kind of... It's not a basket because it's not woven, but it's some kind of half a sphere, but it's got intricate like holes and carvings in. So it was obviously a solid lump of wood, but he's making it into almost as though it is woven, but it's all one solid lump of wood. You're not even sure what this is going to become part of, but clearly he's spending his time doing this intricate little bit of carving to make it look like this object is woven when actually it's a solid lump of wood. You normally only see him doing furniture. He sees you guys coming, looks up and blows away some of the sawdust and the shavings, puts his tools down, and heads over to you.
Side project or a commission?
Well, I like to do a little bit of other things. The other things, keep the skill up. You see, originally I trained with my master back in Cragsholm, and yeah, he did a lot more fancy carvings and working. So I still like to keep my skills up with that, even though round
That's
here.
gorgeous. It looks like it's woven.
Oh, thank you very much. It's something that I'm working on for more of a sort of a fanciful thing, really, not a practical thing.
Oh, well, there's always room for that. Is there a purpose to it, or is it just looking pretty?
Well, I've got another half in the back, and I'm going to make it all one piece. It's a fanciful little thing. People say I'm wasting my time on it. It's nice to see people appreciating a little bit of an impractical art piece, I suppose.
Wood's wood. It's always useful. It's the question of whether it's good for the eyes or for something doing, right?
I appreciate your appreciation. Anyway, Gabby came round earlier. She had to get some errands and bring some samples round. But she left a few pieces here for me to show you guys. Right, let me fetch them out the back. Okay, he goes.
Some of my party members
Do
were
you need a
very
hand?
interested.
No. He goes around the back, disappears, and he comes back out, and there's all sorts of different shapes and sizes of fabrics. They're mostly plain fabrics. You've got some greens, you've got some yellows, you've got some whites, you've got some greys, you've got a black in there as well, although it's not fully black.
Any reds?
He has got something that's red, but it's not a very dark red. It's a little bit. It's not pink, but it's closer to pink than it is red.
On the edge
Damn.
ones. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's salmon.
Yeah.
Yes, why not? Salmon.
I mean, salmon's always a bold choice, guys. What's the color of the wood again, just so we know?
Well, the wood is mostly hidden away, but it looks like it's some kind of dark wood. Maybe you don't want to say it's an oak, but it might be.
Okay.
Possibly we should get something brown so the blood doesn't show.
Yeah, blood does dry brown, so.
Yeah.
Look, while blood can be horrible to get out of anything, I'm sure we'll manage. Salt does miracles.
So white then.
Blood with the salt.
Of course. It's not like that dissolves or anything, or is incredibly frustrating to get a hold of.
Yeah, salt's not that common. I mean,
I was gonna say.
I mean, don't get me wrong, you can probably get hold of salmon here more easily than a lot of places, simply because fishing is quite a big thing here because of the huge mega lake that's right nearby. There's fishing, basically rice and fish are pretty much the two staples of this town.
Mm-hmm.
My God, I just suddenly realised that's exactly what sushi is like. Everyone's just getting
It took
sushi
you
the
this
fuck.
bloody long. I thought this was bloody intentional, man.
It wasn't intentionally supposed to be a kind of Eastern culture, which it's not. It's not an Eastern culture. It just happens that
No, you
rice
said it's
grows
like
better.
Quasi-Italian.
Quasi-Italian. Well, I mean, it could work.
Mediterranean-esque.
Maybe. Something like that. It's not. It is certainly warmer, but it is far more humid than you would normally get.
Actually, if you
How
combine
prolific-
fish, rice, midday naps, and a couple other things involved, it's seeming more like not Spain than anything else.
Is wine prolific in this part of the country?
No. Ale is pretty prolific.
Ah. So it's more of a France analog than a Spain.
If
Okay.
France was in an Asian kind of geography.
So Vietnam.
We said
But that's
this.
tropical.
This
Check
is
the streams,
not
folks.
quite tropical, but it's certainly kind of warm and humid in that way. It's kind of halfway there. The only reason it's humid is because the sea's relatively nearby and you just get all the humidity coming off the ocean.
Oh, sprucing up a chair.
I do like the texture on this brown fabric.
Oh, you found some brown fabric, have you?
Well, the one that he presented to us.
Okay, it is fairly plain and it's fairly coarse, but of course, for something like furniture, you need a fairly strong, coarse fabric. He does mention that Gabby is going to be getting some other fabrics, which are a little bit harder to get a hold of. Just some something
I'd be
that's
willing to hold out for that.
not plain, because all of these are
Now,
fairly plain.
also remember him talking about potentially getting it leathered.
Yeah, he's got leathers already out because a lot of his stuff tends to be sort of leather fixtures, and yeah, he's got some mostly the darker browns or the lighter browns. He's also got an almost entirely black leather. It looks like it is just regular leather, but it's been treated and sent pretty much to black. It's one of the blackest things you've seen that's like a material.
No, that'll hide the blood stains.
Damn straight. Also, I mean, if it's not waterproofed already, a little bit of tallow on that and we're set.
Or wax.
Are you guys
Yeah,
planning on
well,
having murders with the couch president a lot, or?
Well,
no,
we
I'm
may,
just saying,
we may
like,
beat people
I
to
was
death with it.
thinking about the fact that it's out in the rain or something like that, because we don't necessarily always have a shelter, hence the waterproofing. These guys are on about bloodstains. I don't know.
But I mean, I wouldn't be so worried about the rain. I mean, I'd imagine if we end up going particularly far, whatever we end up doing next, we might end up getting a wagon or something.
Well, yeah, but
You could just get a canvas.
you could just get a canvas. It's just we aren't always going to be prepared.
We
I
could,
don't
or we
want-
could,
I
or
don't
we could
want
get a
to-
wagon and then we could just hitch up the cart that we already have, like a trailer behind it, you know.
You know, you're thinking incredibly well here. I,
Get
I
a second
like
horse.
Yeah, get a second horse, pull the wagon, and have the cart basically as a trailer hooked on behind the wagon.
Now, you didn't see any wagons available at the Jewels Inn and Stables, which is the only other place you've noticed that seems to be selling they literally sell horses, and they sell carts, but they didn't
I'm
sell
sure we can get
anything
one made.
bigger. Yeah, probably. I mean,
You could always talk to Travis.
he's a carpenter. It's not quite the same, but it's very similar.
If nothing else, he seems to know people, which is also what we need.
So are you guys going to be waiting for Gabby to get back, or are you?
I think we're gonna wait for Gabby. Let's keep our options open.
Okay.
Yeah, we can just hang around.
Yeah. Apparently, she's only going to be maybe another candle mark, maybe.
Another candle mark isn't too long. Damn. Does anyone have a deck of cards?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, bloody hell, guys. Yeah, if you guys want to play cards, then
Hey, my character's up for it.
I tell you what, while we're playing, let's swap recipes. I hear you've gotten into cooking.
I thought you said cocaine for a second. Then I'm like, whoa.
Oh, yeah!
I'm just like, what the fuck?
The Hobbit truly has gone mad.
Oh no. So do you guys are you just gonna say you play cards until Gabby arrives, or do you actually want to see who wins and do some gambling?
We could.
We could do some gambling.
Sure.
Roll the dice.
Actually, that's a point. Niacin, you in?
I'm in.
Okay. So card games are normally got a degree of skill and wit involved in them, right? So it's not just going to be 100% random. Certain people may be better at card games than others. First thing I have to ask, does anybody...
proficient?
Yes. Does anybody proficient
Yes.
at cards?
Oh god.
Okay, he's proficient. That's
The
unfortunate.
guy who's carrying
so.
them is proficient with them. What a shocker!
Well, I've got higher base ability scores. Hopefully my dexterity and charisma will happen onto something here.
You'll very quickly steal the cards from underneath the deck.
If you want to cheat, dexterity's definitely going to help. And I would ask people, if they want to cheat, then I'd ask people who are being cheated against to at least pretend you don't know that someone's trying to cheat. Because there's no point sending private messages, because otherwise it's all just a fun sort of game.
I'll attempt to cheat.
Oh, fuck's sake, you're going to attempt to cheat.
I'm almost certainly going to fail.
Well, it's going to
So
be...
is that just going to be deception against insight, or what?
Well, no, deception and insight would be if you're playing a game correctly, because that would be a bluffing mechanism. So that would be playing the game correctly. If you're actually trying to cheat, that's going to require sleight of hand versus people's perception. But there will also be some intelligence checks, simply because most of these card games do require a certain degree of intelligence. Intelligence helps. Okie dokie. So we've got one person who's proficient, so pretty much anything they do with these cards, they're going to get their proficiency bonus on top of it. Who is going to try and cheat and slip some cards up their sleeves or whatever it is?
I'll play it honest. I don't see any reason.
I'm
why.
actually better off
Well, at least
using
cheat.
deception. So
Well, you're still going to be using... The way I'll see it is if you do decide to cheat and you successfully do it without being detected, then you're going to get bonuses to the other rolls.
Ah.
in that case, yeah, sleight of hand all the way. I'm gonna get cheated cards like crazy.
Everybody who is trying to cheat at cards, please roll me sleight of hand checks now.
Do I want to do this? Nah.
Okay.
I'm sticking with it.
Everybody who gives a shit whether or not other people are cheating and are trying to spot cheaters, that could include the people that are cheating, please give me perception rolls.
Dang, Niacin.
Damn. Okay.
We know each other. We know that we're both trying to cheat.
Yeah, I don't think I stop him though. I don't want to point out that he's cheating.
Same
Okay.
here.
Okay.
I'll keep your cheating under wraps.
Okay, Tyanir, I mean, you actually would probably get a more bonus on top of that because you get... I would blag that you get the proficiency from the fact that you know the cards. You know the card game. So yeah, you're probably... What is your proficiency? +2 or something? So you're technically on 11 at this point. Okay, you spot that Niacin slips a card just... in his sleeve. You're not sure what was on the card, but you're pretty sure he's done it. You spot Niacin cheated. Are you going to do anything about it?
No.
Okay. So nobody who saw anything, who gives a shit, is going to say anything. Cool. Okay. Okay. Everybody give me Everyone give me deception checks and insight checks and intelligence checks. Please add your proficiency bonus, or I'll add Ty. Yeah, just do normal ones and I'll add the proficiency bonuses.
Do we keep
So,
our proficiency if we already
deception,
have those?
insight, and
we
what?
just don't get them if we don't.
Okay,
Hey,
deception.
wake up.
Deception. Oh yeah, the rolls. So yeah, deception because you're trying to deceive people and bluff people. Insight because you want to try and figure out what the hell people are doing. And a flat intelligence check just to see how good you are at making decisions with the card game.
Not rolling well.
Well, it's a good thing that you get expertise, basically.
Oh wait, that's I need an intelligence check. Whoops.
Is Foxxy even here?
I don't think he's in this particular sofa group.
No, I don't think he was interested in Sophage.
Okay. Right then. Okay, so we have deception, we have insight, and then we have intelligence. So...
Quick, do a spreadsheet to figure out who won.
I'm actually just going to do a quick thing. So basically what we're saying is the people who are cheating, so Izixs, you're cheating, Niacin, you're cheating.
Mhm.
Okay, so you get a little bonuses to some of your scores. We have, there's all the perceptions. Okay. Quarter, your deception is 21, and your... Yeah,
No, mine's 20.
Sorry, yeah, 20.
Izixs is 21.
Okay. And then your Callie's insight is 11. Tyanir's deception is 10. You got Izixs' insight is 6. So you don't know what the hell whether people are bluffing or not. Intelligence of 16 for you, Callie. Tynir's insight of 10. Izixs' intelligence of 6. Oh dear. Oh dear.
I'm not very
Don't
good at
have
this
an
game, but I'm
intelligent
cheating like
party.
crazy.
There's
I
no
look like
wizard.
I know what I'm doing.
Oh my god, you're useless at bluffing, Niacin. No wonder you cheat.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the first roll, although I'm going to apply it for your intelligence roll, which is basically a 19. Because it's the roll that you made, you just clicked the wrong button.
Okay.
And Tyanir's intelligence, 7, oh dear. However,
Telling.
Tyanir gets his proficiency bonus on top of that, which doesn't bring it up too much, I'm afraid. Okay.
Yeah, well, I rolled a 7. So.
Yeah, it didn't do great. Okie dokie. What I'm going to do is I'm going to average some scores out for you chaps.
Well, with these rolls, I'm not losing.
Okay, Izixs, you get an average score of 16. So that's your overall performance in this game. That includes your shenanigans.
Cool.
We have Wiz who gets that, plus 12, plus 19. Wow. Okay, you might have got really bad deception, as in you were really...
People read me like a book.
But you do play your hand a lot better than Izzy.
I just get better cards.
Yeah.
That's all. That's
Well,
luck.
yeah, or maybe you kind of get the gut instinct of, hang on a second, I think that's a different card, and there's not so many of these cards in the deck anymore, and maybe, yeah, you know, you understand the game a little bit better. Quarter, well, holy damn, you do really well at deceiving everybody. You don't really know who's doing what, and of course you didn't cheat, so you're having to go purely off. God, everyone's getting such good sort of similar scores. Right, unfortunately, Ty, You just had a really bad look on this. Very mediocre scores, nothing particularly special, and you didn't cheat. So at the end of the day, you come out, unfortunately, worse off with 11 of a total score. Unfortunately, Ty. That includes your proficiency bonus. So your knowledge of the card game just wasn't with you today, unfortunately.
No, but I have learnt something more about Niacin. It's just confirmed my suspicions.
Glad I could
Quarter.
educate you.
Or should I say Callie? Yeah, you were so close to winning, so close, but you still only
But
come
Niacin
third.
sleeps it out.
Well, Niacin does exceptionally well, but it's literally it's tooth and nail between the three of you, to be honest. Orkon, Niacin, and Callie, so close. So yes, Callie manages to get 15.66 recurring as a score, so 15.5. Orkon, you managed to get 16 exactly, as I said before, but Niacin, you get 16 and a third.
Cool.
There isn't even 1 point difference between you guys. It is so close. So
We
there
were
you go.
just fighting at the end there. It's like,
So what were we betting?
Well, I was, since none of you said you were
Our
betting anything,
souls.
I assume, yeah.
I figured this was a friendly game, so that way we could all scope each other out for potential games later.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay,
Good to
Like,
learn the
just
game,
sort of
because-
gauging where everybody's at, you know?
pass the time. Okay, while you're playing, so you play cards for a bit, and Ty, you know, you're not doing great, but you know, it's just one of those things, as you say, where you can scope people out, you can understand who's what, and what people do, and how they play, and the
Who
time
cheats,
passes.
who doesn't?
Who cheats and who doesn't, assuming that he spots who cheats, which he may or may not have. In one particular case, he didn't. But then Travis greets a young woman who arrives, similarly poorly dressed, not particularly richly dressed like he is, clearly just a working person, and she has a pack that she slings off her back, and she starts taking things out, and then clearly you very quickly guess that this must be Gabby because there's various fabrics in. Now you notice that these fabrics, not only do you notice a small bit of much deeper red fabric, still coarse fabric, still just a fabric, but you also notice that almost all of the other ones have some kind of patterning to them. Now it's interesting, you realize that he doesn't really hold any stock of fabrics of any niceness. Suddenly all of these richer fabrics are coming out. So you're getting the impression that they're kind of recognizing that you guys have got a little bit of coin maybe, and they're pulling out some of the more special fabrics. One particular fabric that she pulls out, which you would say is probably the more opulent perhaps, is it is a darker red. It's sort of halfway between the sort of salmon and proper red of the blank fabric. It's sort of halfway between the two, but it's actually got in there, it's not an embroidered lion, but it's clearly a shape of a lion that's been woven in as the fabric has been put in. It's recognizable. It's not incredibly fancy, but it's a recognizable lion shape.
Nah, but that took time. That's worth it.
Yep.
What do you think, guys? It depends on what they ask for it, I guess. But I'm interested in the lion.
I'm down.
What
do you think, Ty?
I'll ask the other people. It's like, you guys seem to be getting real curious about this. Is there some significance to the lion, or just, you know, it is pretty?
It's the only
It's
thing
just
that's
cool.
it's the only thing that's an animal. The rest are shapes. One of them has crude kind of diamond shapes, like a pack of card diamonds, not, you know, real diamond shapes. That's a dark black, nearly blue, so it's like a dark navy-ish color, and it just has these white diamonds in it. It's quite nice, you know. It's a hard-wearing fabric clearly, but it's a bit unusual because of the patterning. Another one just has lots of intersecting lines like a tweed. And that's a combination of greens and yellows that are just intersected. So it's a pale fabric, but again, it's intersecting lines like a
That's
tweed.
tempting, but it will stain if people are still worried about that.
But yeah,
Perhaps we could get the nice dark leather on the actual sofa and get the lion on the cushions.
Ooh,
cushions. My goodness, what the fuck are you guys? Some pansy fucking princes or something?
Hey, if we're gonna do it,
Yeah,
we're gonna do
you
it
know
right.
what? We're gonna
Sometimes.
fucking splurge on the fanciest sofa possible. I'm in for this.
I'm just concerned that we're going to be carting this thing around.
Mate, if we get a wagon, it's not gonna matter.
And if the wagon breaks down, we're carrying it.
Damn straight.
Might be worth more than the wagon by the time you guys are fucking finished with it.
Hey, I'm probably sleeping on this thing.
Wow, you might have to fight on your hand. But then again, you're tiny. You could just like, I don't know.
I was
probably
gonna
the only one
say,
who'd
even
fit
if I
on
have
it,
a
to
fight
be
on my
fair.
hand, it's like, okay, we'll split.
I'm not interested in sleeping on it. I sleep in the grass.
You're not allowed to sleep on it, you smell.
Okay.
I mean,
I
he's not
accept
wrong. He's not wrong.
I accept that.
Okie dokie. Gabby comes over and she shows you the fabrics. You obviously show a big interest in the mid. I'll call it a mid-red, with the yellow. It's not golden, it's not shiny, but it is a yellow. It's a decent yellow, so it's kind of yellow and red. So it's not a bad combination. Where these obviously recognizable lines that are just repeating across the pattern. And you obviously take.
Are they a different color? Or are
They're,
they still...
they are like a yellow. It's a good solid yellow. Whereas the fabric itself is a sort of middle red.
Okay, that's a good sell.
Okay. She notices you say that. You notices that you guys are quite keen on this particular bit of fabric. And she does kind of smile a bit and inform you that according to Travis and based on the cost that it costs her to get hold of this, because she doesn't make the fabrics herself, it is going to be pretty pricey if you want the whole thing done in this.
See, we weren't necessarily, like, we've been talking, and we were thinking about perhaps getting certain parts of it done in the leather, and then other parts of it done, like, say, the main seat, perhaps, in the
back.
Yeah, exactly, in the back.
Well, Travis and Gabby look at each other, have a little bit of a conversation. It's not a secret conversation, but it's just boring furniture talk, I suppose. And they absolutely do have enough. In fact, she's got enough of this fabric on her now to be able to do a pair of cushions if you wanted to do a pair of cushions for it. The fabric itself is going to cost you 10 gold to make 2 cushions. The fabric itself, her work on top of it's not going to be anywhere near as much as that, so she doesn't mind doing that and putting it together. The actual work for the leather, putting the leather on there, is obviously going to be a bit more time and effort, so it's going to take... It's going to take more than today. It's going to take a couple of days to do the whole thing. She does some basic calculations in her head, talks to Travis based because of the fact that it's his leather, and ultimately he's basically getting her to do the upholstery. And they're coming up with a price of about 22 gold for the materials and the time, and it's probably going to take... they think that based on the workload they've got at the moment, they can probably get it done in 2 days' time, probably in the evening.
Sounds alright.
How do we want to split this, guys?
Take it from the party loot.
Do we want to just take it from the party loot? I'm perfectly willing to pay this out of hand if other people pay this out of hand.
Oh no, I think just pay.
I thought the
from
plan
party
was
loot.
to do it out the party loot.
Oh,
Unless
well, in
anybody
that case, yeah,
objects.
let's just
Yeah,
do
if
it
it's
out the
a
party
party
loot.
couch, then party loot.
Party couch, party loot.
So
I like it.
we can just hand over 220 silver coins.
Yep.
Yeah, they're absolutely fine with that. The way I saw you figuring the coins out is that to make things that you're all buying easier, you just deduct it from one place. And then every now and again, when the party loot gets depleted, the party funds, you would all say, put
we
20 gold in,
10 gold.
or whatever, and then it would top it up. And it just makes the calculations easier, and it means you have to update your sheets less often, I'm guessing.
Right, I've just updated the party loot then.
Cool. Okay.
I'm going to exchange those silver coins for gold coins somewhere in town.
Yeah, there is actually a place. I'll actually show it you in a moment as to where it actually is, because it's actually not too far. Actually, from the area.
We're going on a quick group wander then.
Let me just scroll.
We should
over.
probably keep 100 silver coins just so we have small.
100?
I was gonna say
Okay.
it's probably wise.
Alright, done.
Okay.
I mean, we've also got a bit of party gold in the chest as well, but that's kind of like an emergency fund.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The bail Orkon out of jail fund, yes.
This
Bail?
will inevitably happen.
Bail?
Yeah, that would come under definite discussion of if we were either gonna bail you, leave you to maybe rot because your sentence is only
Hey,
2
hey,
weeks
hey!
or
I was
something
thinking
like that.
bail or break. Come on, guys, we're an adventuring
know.
party.
Hey, if you think
Well, I
about
thought
it,
that's what
if his
bail meant.
if his jail time is like a month, I'd be like, do you know what? I've got some smithing to do. We've
Yeah,
got a bit of
you can wait.
downtime. Like,
So for your downtime, you're just in jail.
Wow, that's nice party solidarity, guys. Basically, the
I know,
way
right?
Fine, it's fine. We can just wait for him to roll a double.
fuck's sake.
It's
And
all
if-
right. He'll be in there for one lockpick, just like in Oblivion, right?
Well, I mean, you can theoretically escape from jail. There is a jail on the map. Because I knew that at some point someone was going to cause shenanigans. Not that you've necessarily caused shenanigans yet, but holy hell, if you think that I think that you guys are going to not fall foul of the
Yeah.
law at some point, I
But
mean,
if-
you...
if he's in jail, if his like sentence is like a month,
Oh,
I'm not paying for him to get out of jail, and I am not helping him to escape jail. If it is a month sentence,
Hey,
if
dude,
it's like
if it's a
you-
month sentence, it's not going to be the most expensive bail in the world.
yeah, but why waste the money when we can literally do a month of downtime and wait for him to get out?
Yeah, we could just
Two
wait a month.
words.
A month in
Master
jail
Chief.
is just punishment for getting caught.
Yeah,
wow.
Do better next time.
you should have been better at your job. Flick on the nose. You now have to stay in here for a month.
You got to sit in a hole for a month.
I
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
fact that you guys are so fucking kind.
And if
Hey,
and-
I'd still break him out.
there's
Not talking
yeah,
about these guys.
I would break him out as well, but his sentence would either have to be death or years. Like, we are going
Wow.
to put you to death. Okay, we're going to break you out. Or your sentence is 12 years. Okay, we're going to break you out. If we can't afford, you know.
This is
The
what I like
bail.
about the pragmatic justice of Adrik, right? It's justice until it's inconvenient for me.
That's so true.
No, I can't wait. I can't wait 12 years.
My laws are that of Paylors, none of which says follow the laws of a governed body of system of people. It's follow this set of rules. That's it.
Yeah, you've got a similar conundrum to my character. The difference is that your character's good.
Yeah, I am good.
Good is
I
not
am a good
lawful in the
person.
sense that
Yes.
it's. But then again, I think you're also lawful. But it depends on the law,
Yes.
because remember, good is relative and law is relative.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a
I'm-
very funny system.
I am lawful good. My law is to my friends and to my church, to Paylor.
Church or
and
Paylor, which comes first?
Paylor.
Okay.
Paylor comes first.
What about
then
friends
church.
versus church? Oh, the church is before your friends.
Yes, it's actually a flaw in my thing.
Ah.
Note to self: don't get on the bad side of your church.
Oh God.
I put too much trust in those who wield power within my temple's hierarchy.
Ooh. Oh, okay.
It's a flaw I have.
Mm.
Interesting.
Oh boy.
Another flaw is I can't resist a pretty face.
Yay!
Well, you
that's
can,
why you
honestly.
stick me around. Keep
If
me around.
Callie was like, "We're gonna break out Orkon," okay. what do you need me to do?
You don't think Orkon's quite pretty enough, just by himself?
I can't
He's
work
not-
out if he's a
elves
dude or
aren't
a
really
woman.
his type, right?
I do have
Yeah.
17 charisma
Whoa.
Wow.
How do you have
Wow, really?
17 charisma?
because I have 17 charisma.
The max at character creation is 16.
Unless you get modifiers because of
15,
race.
and the max at character creation is 15, and he get +2 because he's a half elf.
Yep.
Ugh.
I'm a pretty
Look
boy.
at me, I have one more point in your necessary. I'm not salty, honest.
Okay, here's the question. I think what you need to do for me, Orkon, I think you need to roll me a charisma check right now, and I think no.
Whoops.
So basically, what you do is oh, you'd buy me out
see
of
through that
jail, wouldn't
makeup.
you? Wouldn't you? And just as you well, that's the yeah. As you
I
flutter
rest
your
my case.
eyelids, unfortunately, you flutter your eyelashes out of sync, and then fart. And unfortunately, it kind of ruins it. And even a dwarf, I mean, if you were a drinking buddy, then the fart might kind of been like, ah, but it's like no, not when you're trying to be.
Yeah. Like literally, you try and charisma off, and then Callie does it, and Adrik's like, yeah, I'd break Callie out of jail before you.
Well, I guess that's to be
Roasted.
expected.
Unless I needed you to break Callie out of jail, then I would break you out first.
Well, I mean, that's probably fair enough, I guess. I don't know why they
Note
put
to
Callie
self,
in high
always be
security.
essential.
What I've done is
no
I've
reason.
moved you guys. The place that I left Niacin was actually a moneylenders. As you can see, that is actually a small building to the north. This is a moneylenders. To the south, there is Travis's carpentry shop. He does all of his carpentry pretty much out with us. It's got a small little awning over the front of this, but it looks like it's pretty much just his house, and he goes in and out to get various bits. So he doesn't really have the door open at all. He just does the work out under this awning out of the rain. So that's pretty much where it is. You're also to the right, to the east now. It goes out of the center of town, not into a poor district, but into a poorer district where there's far more wooden buildings. And there are the marketplace as well, because there is a marketplace. It's not in the central area. It's all mostly proper businesses here. And Adrik's just deciding to have a little wander, as he does.
Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty much what you guys are doing. Travis, obviously, he said that it's in 2 days' time. So basically, he's going to be working on it today. He's going to be working on it tomorrow, and then finishing it the next day.
Cool.
So what I'm going to do, unless something weird and freaky happens and that he disappears and absconds with your money, or the place burns down, or someone decides that your sofa needs to be fired over the walls of the town, not that there are walls, with a catapult, then I'm just going to say that you pick up the
Smash
sofa.
it with a couch.
Picks it up.
Okay. So you guys are now got some free time, unless there's anything specific you guys want to do.
I do.
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to do other than your sort of passing the time?
I want. Go first.
I want to speak to Frenor.
Okay.
And basically what I'm going to talk to him about is what kind of magics, how does he help the people, like, what is his abilities? How can he, what is it he does? Is he a potion brewer? Has he just got a little bit of minor magic, like cantrips, or is he just simply there to teach?
Okay, he explains that he mostly teaches. However, if there are people who are in great need, he will pray to Pelor in a more... See, he will pray for everybody, but to actually sit down and spend time and actually pray directly to Pelor to directly intervene is something he doesn't do very often. In his youth, because he's getting on a bit, in his youth, he did possess, as you do, power granted by Pelor within himself to be able to cure the sick and provide alms to the ill. He hasn't done that very much at all in the last, well, decades really. Not because he began to lose his powers, but he found that his time was better spent educating and teaching and trying to teach people that it is better to help themselves and the community around them, which will then benefit them more than simply giving people quick fixes. He respects people who have been chosen by Pelor to grant, his blessings directly, such as yourself, but he has found that his calling is probably better toward the teaching, the nurturing, and the training of people to be able to look after themselves, and also to get them to look after others as well in the community.
Fair enough.
But he has performed, as you've heard from other people, not when he's present, he's not a very proud person, but you have heard from others that he has nevertheless performed miracles that they would consider of healing the sick who have been injured. Normally it's like a parent, perhaps, where their children are dependent on their income and things like that, accidents, people that injuries were like, well, that's it, you're a write-off. And yes, people have gotten better after he has, but he's always a case of it's Pell or it's not me, you know, as I'm sure you would agree as well. But he's a very humble man, and he doesn't directly intervene very often.
Right. So he's not as powerful as he once was.
In game terms, I suppose, you get the impression he was probably a cleric at one point. He probably still is, but he's decided that it is better just to be a teacher.
Okay.
So he probably does have power, but
Keeps it under wraps.
it's more to do with he's
just not showboaty about it.
Yeah,
He doesn't feel like that's the thing he needs to pursue.
So he's
It's
the
like
opposite of Adrik.
It's like he's got 4 or 5 levels in Cleric and then just decided to progress in Commoner or Adept or some shit afterwards because he realized what he really needed to do was be part of the community and make people feel good.
I mean, ultimately, there's only so much you can do with raw magic. When it comes down to it, people have got to look after themselves and become stronger. So you get the impression that he's more of a nurturing the community than spot-fixing problems.
Read multi-classed into Bard.
Or, probably not, just literally a case of he just stopped classing at all. You know, he's an NPC. He doesn't necessarily have to have classes in anything.
This is true. This is true.
Okay. My question was, the reason I'm asking is because I'm going to give him the clerical scrolls I have.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely happy with that. Okay. What are those scrolls? Let me jot them down so that we know that he's got them.
Because he's going to use them against us.
He was a demon all along.
Do we know what all of them do?
Yeah. I know what all 4 do.
Let me open up your sheet and I will copy them before you delete
No,
them.
I'm just seeing. It's just because basically what I talked to him about is I'm probably not going to be around here forever. I don't know if you can defend yourself. I know it's not very often that a cleric of Pale kind of donders through these parts. And I don't know what your capabilities are. And definitely right now, like, I scare off any riffraff or any problems there would maybe be, or if there would ever be any problems.
Yeah, I mean, he basically puts your mind at rest that there hasn't been any more problem than you'd get in any other town. They're not in the center of town, but the guards do pass by relatively frequently. They don't generally get any problems. The local community are very respectful of that temple, and you get the impression that there have been the odd random things that you get in every town, of course, but the local people who are near the temple really don't like trouble to be caused to the temple, and tend to, you get the impression the community is pretty much on his side.
Okay.
They look after him.
Well, I will give him the Cure Wounds scroll and the Command scroll.
Okay.
The Guiding Bolt and the Inflict Wounds I will keep for myself.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, he probably wouldn't want the Inflict Wounds anyway.
Come on, it'll be fun.
Inflict Wounds is actually fucking... There's a lot of damage. Was it 3d8 or something?
3d10. It's the most.
3d10, yeah.
It's the most damaging first level spell.
It requires a touch attack, but it's
I mean,
pretty
touch
vicious.
attacks are not the easiest thing to get, but that's worth it.
Yeah, I will give him the Cure Wounds scroll and the Command scroll. And I will say, I will no doubt be about, and if at any point I may need assistance, I would probably love it if you helped. But Yeah. Use these and in dire emergencies.
Okay. Now you
These will last for a very long time, and you should only use them in an emergency case.
Yeah, he reassures you that he does have other scrolls that over the years have been collected. And yes, he's aware of how to look after them and how to use them, so not to worry about that.
I know, so that's no problem.
Okay. One question. I know, Adrik, you mentioned sort of prior to the stream, and I think you might have mentioned it during the stream, but you said that you were going to be splitting your time between temple duties, and obviously, as part of your background, you are, RPing that to get your free room and board, which he's absolutely happy to do. So, yeah.
Yep.
Anything
he needs from, teaching and giving prayers to digging holes out the back to bury worshippers of Pillow.
yeah, that's fair enough. Here, because you're in quite a large town, most people are returned to Paylor directly if they are part of the church. Anyone who, so basically, literally, they are cremated. There are burial mounds outside of the town if people prefer that, because some people do. They want to be returned to the earth, they want to nurture the earth, they want the cycle to continue, or maybe they just simply, don't like fire, and that's fine. That is a service that he does, but obviously there's more sort of, ultimately everything is driven by money. It's not about the money, but bigger donations for that kind of thing. Anyone else pretty much goes to the Temple of the Raven. He doesn't mention how Temple of the Raven deal with the dead, other than the fact that anyone who isn't dealt with by anybody else, that's where they go. And I suppose my question that comes to it is, are you splitting your time favoring doing things around the temple, or are you doing kind of, out of character, the minimum amount to kind of not be rude, and then you're spending more of your time, I'm trying to think of what is the majority of your waking time going to be doing during this period?
It honestly, it depends when he does his ceremonies. Like, I will no doubt be there. Like, me and him will probably wake up in the morning and we'll set up the church, and we'll both pray to Paylor, clerical style. He'll probably won't pray for spells. I will. That would be the difference in it. But me and him would probably do the morning prayer together.
Okay.
I would probably assist with him setting up the probably morning communion with people coming in, and possibly do that. Then I would go out to the smithy, and I would work from, I'd probably say, about 9ish till about 3, maybe 4 in the afternoon, a good few hours.
So really you're working at the smithy as your sort of primary downtime, daytime activity.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would be there for the morning ceremony. I would not leave to go to the smithy until the morning ceremony was done, and I would be there for the evening ceremony. And I would also take time off from the smithy if there was anything specific. Yeah, basically, if he was like
Cleric on call, I like it.
Yeah, if he was like, someone is seriously injured, can you come help me? I would be like, I will be right there. Tools would go down, I would go off. Or if he was like, on Thursday next week, there's a lady that we're going to build a pyre for and burn her to a crisp, I would be like, don't worry, I will talk to the smithy and let them know that I will not be there next week Thursday.
Okay. She's not dead.
Okay.
Don't worry, she will be at the end of it.
Right then.
Return to Paylor either way.
What I would like you to do then, since you're going to be working mostly at the smithy, as far as your daytime, non-downtime stuff, you're going to be working at the smithy. The fact that you also don't have, at the moment, you don't really have any lifestyle expenses. You're not living the high life by any means. It's the equivalent, I would say, of a poor lifestyle. It's safe. It's got the safety of something that's more modest, but yeah, you're getting food as part of the temple stuff and sleeping arrangements that are not the best. But you don't mind, because I'm sure you don't mind.
That's what I was brought up on.
Yeah, basically.
To be fair, sleeping in the temple and eating the temple food, I guarantee you, is a lot better than sleeping and eating on a ship.
Better than fucking dwarf fucking bread, that's for certain.
Yeah. So like, and I have lived on a ship for like the last 10 years. Like, this is fucking
Luxury.
heaven to me.
Okay. Then, okay, so what I'm going to say is at the moment, you're fine with your living expenses, food, and accommodation and everything, but you're working at the smithy. Now, you're saying that you don't want to get paid, but you're going to ask Arvin for, you know, every now and again you're going to be like, is it alright if I do this, or is it alright if I work on, you know, that kind of thing, I'm guessing. It's okay, smithy-related things, yeah? So what I think we're going to do is we're going to do the whole work roles thing to see how well you do at the smithy. And instead of getting an amount of money, you get gold pieces worth of kind of credit with him, which you can, if you want, cash in for the cash, or you can cash in for smithy-related items at a 10% discount, because it's easier. Or we can find some sort of arrangement if you want to do something else with it. But we're going to measure the amount of stuff that's owed to you by him in a gold piece fashion, because it's just easier to measure it that way. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, no, that's completely fine with me.
Okay. And give me, I'm assuming, obviously you're proficient, so all of these will be a proficiency. We'll have added on top of them the proficiency. We can add that manually. But if you give me an athletics check, an intelligence check, because that is important. And I am going to say... I'm going to say dexterity check, because some of this is fine work.
Okay.
You know, it's not all about hammering out things. There's a certain degree of precision and stuff. So if you give me those checks, you're proficient with the tools you're using, so we can add 2 or whatever it is. I think it is 2, isn't it, at your levels? That's a fucking lot.
That's
I mean, you've aced that score.
You backflip over the smithy and
That's intelligence. With a -1, I'm pretty happy with that intelligence.
Yeah, that's a good roll.
And then dexterity, which is 0, 7. Which is a 9.
smash your
Could
thumb.
be worse.
Because I'm proficient, so that's +2, so it's 9. So it's 23, 16,
Lots
and
of
9.
athletics, not much dex. Adrik smash.
Okay, that averages out. That averages out to 16. So basically, you do pretty damn well. I would say that you're gonna get worth of stuff for the first week, and this is how which we're gonna do. We're gonna do 1 week, and then we're gonna, you know, other things may happen. So for this week, and we assume you pick up the sofa, we're gonna say that you get 18 gold's worth of favor with him.
18 gold pieces worth of favor.
So that's worth of favor. So you can trade that in at 10% discount for anything that you could normally get at a smithy, or for the cash, or other stuff that you think might be a favor to him. And if it's a case of, could you help me out with something out of town, blah, 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 there'll be a cost associated with that based on how much.
How do I spell his name again?
Arvin. So literally exactly as it sounds. Arvin, I believe.
That's what I wrote down.
Pretty sure that's what it was. Arvin, yes. Arvin. Arvin's Anvil. You get the impression that either he wasn't called Arvin, or he was destined to be Anvil related with a name like that.
Sort of, is it a stage name?
Is it a stage name? Is it coincidence? Who knows? Of course, in reality, Adrik knows full well that it's nothing of the sort, because Anvil in Dwarven isn't pronounced Anvil, it's pronounced nothing like Arvin. So it's actually entirely a fluke that in common it rhymes. Or at least, you know, sounds similar. Okay. So, yeah, you're going to be working at that place. Who else knows what they're doing? You're carousing, aren't you?
I know what I'm doing.
Oh, you know what you're doing, Quarter. All right then. Yeah. Let's. What are you doing?
So first off, I mean, is this going week by week?
We're going to do a week's worth initially. So yeah, see what happens, because maybe something happens after a week. Who knows?
Okay, so in that case, I mean, so I'm going to be getting a day job. Well, yeah, basically, okay, I actually have to think about how I measure the time for this, because the problem is, okay, first thing I want to do is start a cult. I need
Wow.
a quick stat.
Just like that.
Before we run off a
Snaps
little
his
bit
finger.
further,
I've done some legwork in
hold
the
on.
area, and one of the things that I'll be doing, which is basically the first week, is figuring out exactly the right time and space in that little Pantheon temple, piecing together all the separate schedules, and doing a little bit of part-time work as a helper, just to figure out when everything is shut down.
Fuck's sake. Okay. Well, before we do that, yeah. Okay. That's a long-term goal. This is. You don't make a cult in a week.
Well, exactly. Hence why I'm saying this
Start it.
first part is just all the scoping out of it.
No problem. But, okay.
The research.
Okay, Adrik, what was you saying before we move on to someone else?
yeah, I had a quick question. I guess by what I've described, I am only just doing. I'm doing a little bit more than the bare minimum, but the bare minimum for the church thing then.
You're easily able to do stuff like that. I mean, there's even opportunities here and there to use a bit of magic, because there are inevitably, as much as Frenor himself sees the value in building community. It's almost like, teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish kind of a technique. But sometimes you just need to give a man a fish, because if you spend the time teaching, well, the problem is immediate. So yes, he's got no problem with you using some of your abilities like that. There are plenty of little community things that every now and again do need a strong pair of arms. So yes, you could do a few bits beyond the minimum, but it's not enough to interfere with effectively what has become your day job.
It's not. It's also not something that I would really just gain any favor with Frenor with. Then. Unless
you dedicate a lot of time. I mean, he likes you. Don't get me wrong. He likes you. He appreciates you being there. He sees that you are pulling your weight around, so he doesn't mind you staying. And that's kind of the balance. If you stay there,
what I tried to get across as best as I could is I'm not doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, you're not being lazy. He does recognize that you're helping out and sticking around. Yeah. He does not perceive you as being a minimum possible effort, quickly run away because you've got your food and your sleep. No. He's not getting pissed off. He's yeah. Don't worry. I understand what you're doing.
He appreciates you.
He does appreciate you being around, and he respects that you have a very different way of bringing Palor's light to people. And it's all equally important. And he's kind of wistful about his youth in some ways, about when he was a bit more hands-on. He didn't go off exploring dungeons. But he certainly was a little bit more active when he was younger. So he's happy. You don't look like a scrounger. Don't worry.
Cool. That's fine. Yep.
Cult. Starting a fucking cult. Okay.
That's the plan. That's my long game.
Is it the cult of Gorfanax?
Hey. That's not the name of my lord.
Right then. Bloody hell. Okay. This is funny. Okay. Well, technically, you're chilling around that temple for a bit, and you're really just getting familiar with the comings and goings, who's doing what, when they do it. Are you looking for things like when there's nobody about, and things?
First off, yes. Also, what areas of the temple are less or more used?
So you're going to have to build up a bit of rapport with these guys. They're not just going to randomly...
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I plan on certainly volunteering and helping out work with their gods.
Okie dokie. So this is more, at least for the first week, I would say you're effectively, as much as you have other ulterior motives, it's effectively you're doing religious service. You're helping
pretty
out.
Much, yeah.
But you with that kind of keeping an eye and learning as much as possible about the comings and goings of this pantheon. Fucking hell, okay.
Definitely.
This is going to be great. This is going to be great. I like this. I do like this. I would say this is an interesting one. I want you to give me some rolls.
Sure.
Are you proficient in religion?
No.
Okay. That's fine.
However, proficient in deception.
Yes, deception is definitely one of your rolls. You just would have got an extra bonus if you're also proficient in religion, because you'd be able to smooth over everything because you know a little bit already. Give me a deception roll. Oh, go on. What's
quick
that?
Question.
Mm-hmm.
You probably by now recognize that Adrik is probably quite favourable of you. If you did come and ask about any religious questions, Adrik is proficient in religion.
Do I get permission to add those elements to it?
What I would suggest is not to do with not knowing answers to questions or not having knowledge. It's to do with a general understanding of certain practices. So, for example, when someone asks you to do a certain thing, with religious proficiency, you're more likely to be like, absolutely, yes, and you'd know that there's a particular order to do things. It's not that you get into trouble for not knowing, it's that people pay less attention because you're getting things right without being shown. Whereas without the proficiency, people have to be a little bit more hands-on to help, which means that you're more likely to not have time alone to do the secret things you want to do as well.
Yep, exactly. It's less likely to be unsupervised.
Exactly. So give me a deception roll. Give me an give me a religion roll, of course.
So I'll start with religion.
Start with religion. Also deception. Oh, fucking hell, you got a really good roll anyway.
Wow.
Oh! And
Oh, baby! I'm on fire today.
I changed my mind from the intelligence to religion, so we're ignoring the intelligence check for now. Give me do you have something like persuasion?
I don't have it proficient, but it's not bad.
Do you have, let me have a little scan. Performance? Do you have performance?
Nope.
Okay, then give me whichever one of those you want, because it doesn't really make a difference.
They're basically the same.
Yeah.
For me. They're both +3.
Okay.
So...
Okay. Whichever one you want doesn't really matter then.
Oh.
No, that's still good. That is still good. So you've got a 20, you've got an 18, and you've got a 10. You've done well. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's an average of 16.
A figure in the mists will be worshipped.
Okie dokie. Right. You start doing various service around the church. So you're lighting incense, you're clearing away things, you're replacing burnt out candles, you're even to the point of consoling some people sometimes, because some people are come and they're praying to loved ones. You're handing out things, you're answering questions about when things are happening. You're general doing the basic stuff around the church. You start clicking with more of the complicated things, helping with some of the ceremonies, knowing which things need to be brought out and put away, anticipating, robes and other things that are being used. And yeah, you begin to be allowed in certain areas. There's a back room which has a lot of storage, which you put things away, so you find what's in the storage areas and what's kept where. It's not anything valuable. There are a couple of items that are done for certain ceremonies. There's robes which are inlaid a little bit. Nothing that's like inlaid heavily, but there are some things that have gold fibers, and of course the cloth itself is very expensive. So there are things there. I mean, you estimate at a guess anywhere between 20 and 50 gold's worth of stuff. You would take a bit. I mean, I'm not saying you want to steal it. I'm just giving you an idea as to you have access to that stuff.
No, definitely. It's like they trust me with this much stuff.
In the back as well, and this is up to you whether you accept them on this offer. You would be able to, for second week onwards, they would trust you enough and give you a bed that if you wanted to sleep in the back, where some of the acolytes do, they're happy if you have trouble with that, but not for this first week, but certainly by the end of it, they trust you enough to give you a bit of a space as long as you help out for most of the day, sort of thing. They are happy to share their food with you for this first week, but you do need to find somewhere else to sleep. So food-wise...
I already set up food and sleep at the Lamp and Lodestone.
Okay, cool. For the whole week?
Yeah.
So you multiply it out, because that was just for the day that we originally did. Did you?
Oh, goodness. Okay, yeah. In that case, so remind me what that price was again.
I think it was 4 silver per day, I think. 1 second while I double check. 4 silver per night, and that includes some food, not like a day's worth of food, but you can happily fill up on some of the food that the Pantheon is giving. I mean,
I'm perfectly happy to spend time with them and be friendly. That's what I'm here for.
And to be fair, portions tend to be about the same for you as they are for other people, at which point you fill up,
It's like, I will have 2 breadsticks.
Now, you also start to get an impression as to who in the temple is a believer and who is not. Most people do seem to be believers. They're not fervent. A lot of the acolytes, they're clearly there because they get to sleep in the back, they get some food, maybe their father or their family are religious. They're there because it's better than being on the street and they can do it. Other people are really passionate, but you would say that there's a percentage of people, there's a few acolytes there that they don't believe, they go through the motions. You pick up on that. There are things that certain acolytes, they will say, for example, it's not because you can tell they're lying, it's because they'll say, that, they've chosen to abstain from certain things because, in the eyes of their Lord it's impure. But you've seen them making a sneaky sort of pass into the Lamp and Lodestone or one of the various open houses around and pulling back a few. So by observation rather than insight that there are those who, if they do believe, their God's not going to be very happy because they're going against what they're telling the priests. Maybe it's youthful ignorance and willfulness. Maybe it's genuine just disrespect. You don't know yet, but you're starting to get an impression of as to who is on the ball and who is not. Most of the time, the people who are the head priests, the three main priests that deal with the three main religions that are there, they tend not to stay overnight. There aren't any sort of head priest quarters. It looks like one of the rooms that probably was at one point a room for a head priest has been turned into a study and a bit of a storeroom. It's a bit of a mess. So none of the head priests stay overnight, but there are a few of the other acolytes that are obviously a bit more respected, been around for a bit longer, that do stay overnight, but not all the time. So wherever they go sometimes, you guess that they just obviously have more money. They deal with the donations. You and all the other acolytes, when they deal with the donations, none of you guys are around. They take it into the back study, the door closes. So anything to do with the donation boxes and where the money goes, you have no idea yet. That's kept away from the general congregation and acolytes. They get... Go on. What is Adrik?
No, I do have a question. You didn't tell me about Palo's donation box. There must obviously be a donation box in Palo's temple.
They actually don't have a box. Right at the front, they have an area where people can place whatever donations they want, whether it be lighting candles. It's a large open area, because remember, yours is a temple to Palor. That is it. It's not a pantheon. And there are people who are there all the time. Frenor lives, works in the temple. He locks it up, but he's close enough to be able to hear if someone bangs on the door. Apparently, he will actually get up in the night and let someone in, apparently, if someone needs to get in. You're thinking that's a bit kind of, bit risky.
No, I agree with that.
But yes, it's ultimately, it's a policy where he's protecting it while he's sleeping, but if someone's in need, he's happy to help. But because of that, it's a lot more open. There aren't sealed boxes that are chained to a side where people can't run off with them. It's at the back of the temple, right in the middle, where people will do all the candles, they'll do the incense, they'll put offerings of food, they'll put offerings of money, they'll put offerings of carvings or things that they've made. A carpenter actually left some, it was literally wooden spoons and forks. That was all it was. Knives are very rarely needed, and they're made of metal. So he that's all he could do. It's a donation. You get a lot of weird stuff coming in, but it's really useful stuff. Almost everything in the temple has been stuff that's been donated, and some of it's really nice. Some of it's, all of it's pretty much mismatched, but it's all been donated at the front, right upon where the main statue is, as it were, at the feet. So it's a lot more open, the donations. Whereas the Pantheon, it leans more toward financial donations. You can donate whatever you want, but you have to give it to someone and they'll take it away. But Palor is more donate whatever you want upon the pedestal at the far end. And then the food, it's been given to Palor. It doesn't go to waste. It normally goes to the poor. Some of the other acolytes that are there go out and distribute it amongst the needy. If you want, you can accompany them. And you actually then will go into the poorer areas of town where Niacin has been, and you'll actually get to see, you know, inevitably every community has the poor, you know, that don't have the skills, or they're sick, or they've fallen down in their luck. You know, don't need to explain that too much. But that's roughly how the donations work with the Pelor Temple.
Actually, probably what I would do is every now and again I would
Make it
probably.
quick.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I know. I do apologize. It's
Like
just
anybody else.
Annex other people's fucking turns. Honestly,
Don't worry,
fucking
it's not like
dwarves.
you've
To be
already
fair.
described your week or anything.
that's true. But to be fair, I was silent the entire time you guys were doing with the couch.
That's weak, but just hurry up.
I was working. But yeah, probably a trip every now and again down to the poorer districts with the acolytes who
Sure.
are taking food and stuff like that.
Sure.
And do a whole Paylor kind of this is I am a sender of Paylor, and probably do a prayer of healing and a purified food and drink.
Cool. Well, that's good. Yeah, purifying food and drink is really important over there, because a lot of the time people, you know, they're choosing to drink water that's coming off roofs of buildings rather than in the wells in the center of town, because sometimes they're just too weak, or it takes too much time to do that, or they don't have anything to fucking carry it in. You know.
Yeah.
Some, you know, there are buckets, but some of them just, they don't have the opportunity to do things. So yeah, that's a useful thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving back to where we were. Honestly, I swear, it just some players. I mean, they're just rude.
Cult time.
So yeah, you get quite an intimate understanding of how the Pantheon operates. You now have a bit more. You have access to the stock room. Generally speaking, you don't think you could just wander in there. But if there's a vague reason why, so well, I'm getting such and such for so and so, or I'm putting away these things because the ceremony's over, you'll get away with it. No one will bat an eyelid. And yes, by the end of the first week, you've made yourself useful enough for people to be like, you know what, if there's a spare bunk, then go for it. If you want to break bread with us, then that's absolutely fine.
Wonderful. I mean, obviously, at the same time as this, the other thing I'm going to be doing is communing with my lord personally as much as I can to ensure that, like, I let this being know that this is in fact what I'm trying to pursue, and let him know to sort of like get something showy up. I leave what happens with that in your hands for when it comes. I'm perfectly willing for you to start taking a hands-on role with my Eldritch God.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll put, because now you are jumping straight into doing something quite heavy with your lords, related to your lord, because I'm making the obvious assumption this cult is going to be to your lord.
Hecking yes.
So he or she, it knows that your intention is not to convert, your intention is to promote the cause, and you get the impression that this is a positive thing. It is recognized for what it is. So yeah, there's no worries that you're suddenly gonna wake up and your arms have withered away. You're not
Okay.
because that would
That'd be awesome, though.
I mean, it would be a way of your god punishing you, your lord, but it's not. Yeah.
Well, exactly. The other side of this is, I mean, I want to make sure that when I unveil this power to those I want to show it to, it's there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there's no worries on that side. You know, your true faith is unshaken and not in doubt to your lord, and you're definitely currying a bit more favor with the Pantheon. And the various priests there. They're a little bit snooty. They're very matter-of-factly of doing stuff. They are fervent believers, you believe? But it seems to be that they're doing it as a labor to their god, not necessarily a labor of love to their god.
I see.
They're doing it because they believe that that's what is the right thing to do for their god, not necessarily because
it's what they want.
Yes, which in many ways is not necessarily a problem, because most of the gods are understanding that, you know what I mean, sacrifices again. You know, if you don't want to be doing something, but you're doing it anyway, that's still doing it.
It's more meaningful, precisely.
Yeah. To a point, yes. It's different meanings, but yes, ultimately it is still doing your Lord's work.
Certainly.
Okay. You do a bit of religious service there. You do pretty well with that. 1 second. With that. Now, there is one particular ceremony that is to be performed. And they don't do that many proper formal ceremonies. They do sort of morning stuff and do little almost like new converts kind of ceremonies, but nothing that's grandiose, nothing that's fancy very often. They maybe do once a week, something like that.
Right.
Now, toward the end of the week, it is... Let me just roll. Okay. You notice that it's actually the Corellon priest, the one that did the magic identification, the 8-pointed star priest.
Right.
Has a particular ceremony, and he is bringing in some new recruits. Apparently there's some sort of traveler coming. You're not sure on the details, but there's someone visiting the Pantheon. You get the impression it may be a priest or an acolyte or a visitor of Corellon that he'd heard is coming specifically. So he wants to kind of pull out the stops and do a bit of a show, be a bit respectful to someone coming in, or at the very least put on a good welcome. However, one of the more senior acolytes that was going to assist him with this, nowhere to be seen. Now, sometimes acolytes will wander in, they won't be there one day, they will be there the next. He said he was going to be there to help, he's not. So, you're like, hang on a second, I kind of know roughly what's going on with this. Yeah, you've picked up a few things, you offer your help. At first he's a little bit kind of, a little bit unsure as to whether or not you can be of help, and you suggest, I can get the incense and I can do this, and I'll make sure that your robes are proper. And he's kind of like, oh, okay. And you help him out with this. Now, it doesn't go completely without a hitch, but you can tell he is rather thankful that you were there and willing to stand up and managed to get through it without any major issues. He genuinely is quite happy. He's slightly embarrassed that he needed the help from someone who's only reasonably new in the town. And you can tell that he's quite angry at this other acolyte for not being around.
Of course.
But you get the impression you could probably get a favour out of him for something. And because he is the Corellon thing, you might think you could probably get an identification out of him or something similar to minor service out of him as a kind of a payback kind of a thing for doing this. So you're certainly in his good books.
Well, that's always a relieving place to be.
So if you could turn around to say that Corellon priest favour, you can jot that down.
I will do that now.
And that can definitely be of use.
Fantastic. So that's it for this week?
That is it for the first week. Who else knows what they're going to do? Is he? Was it you?
I think I do. So I am very keen on learning a lot more about this town.
Okay.
So if we're going to be staying here a while, I'd want to know the places to go, the people of power, both obvious power and maybe not so obvious, as well as places to maybe if I need to go hide out somewhere where it might be safe, or the party as well, if it's big enough.
Yeah.
A general feelings of the town. Is there some sort of brewing issues underlying the populace that may become important but may not be resolvable easily, that sort of thing. Sort of, are we on a powder keg and don't know it, sort of stuff, as well as knowing what the criminal element is sort of about, if there's much at all, and generally trying to become more situationally aware of our environment so that I might be able to either keep myself and the party safe in the future, or maybe in another week exploit something.
That is a mixed bag, but yes, okay. Now we can do something with this. Okie dokie.
So, wandering around, getting to know people, getting the lay of the land.
Feel of the town, basically, both the locations within, and the people within. how the two are connecting, and if there's any trouble brewing, if you can tell. So it's kind of like you want your ear to the ground and the finger on the pulse of the city to a point.
Exactly.
Now, it's a big town. Well, it's not a big town. It's a town, and you're only wandering around. And I'm guessing you're obviously paying your own way for your week's worth of lodgings and everything. Where are you staying during this time?
I will be, for the most part, staying at the fancy place, the Jewels Inn there. That's 1 golden night, right?
It's actually 8 silver.
8 silver.
I believe 8 silver. That's what I wrote down. I know that initially there was a bit of confusion, mostly because I didn't write it down. But yes, it's 8 silver for 1 night, and you get enough food to be all right with that. And then the taverns, the Lamp and Lodestone is 4 silver. Similar sort of thing. You'll probably have to pick up a bit of food here and there, a couple of coppers probably, if you go to the Lamp and Lodestone, because you get a breakfast, but you don't get a lunch. So yeah, you're going to wander around the town and get an idea of the lay of the land. I want for you to give me some checks then. First thing I want is an insight check, because you're getting a feel for the people within the city.
Now, Orkon thinks he's all about this. Yeah, he thinks he's very insightful, but that's because his wisdom's actually 8.
So he thinks he's really... Whoa!
But then again...
I also would like a perception roll as well, because you are... No, sorry. Scrub that, an investigation roll. I know perception you're slightly better at, but unfortunately you're going to get an investigation, which is also pretty good. And I would turn around and say... I would say survival, because in many ways it is about lay of the land. Even though it's in a natural area, it is still nevertheless a valid role, I would say. I'm trying to... Yeah. Because there are some things that are probably relevant to that. But that 19, holy crap. And I'm going to count that critical as a bit higher than the 19 as well.
Cool.
You guys are doing all right with these rolls. Okie dokie.
Nobody's totally failing here.
No, you actually, to be honest, doing pretty good.
We all seem to be getting 2 good and 1 shit.
Yeah, this is true.
Seems to be the way.
So, what I would say is you wander around the city and explore it. You chat to a few people. Obviously, you chat to market vendors, check out various stores. You kind of get an idea of where everything is at this point. Although you won't know every single alley in the same way as you imagine Becky does, you certainly could probably navigate to most major places, certainly within this area here. You find the market, you find the poor district, you find the West District that's mostly the shorter races, and you have a little wander around there. There are still plenty of the taller races in there, plenty of humans living there, but certainly as you get further toward the hills and the mountains, you do tend to get a higher concentration. Dwarves are living up to a stereotype here of being predominantly, like you would say that the miners and the craftsmen that are working with the stone and things like that, coming from the quarries, people that are working with any gems, any metals, smelting, anything like that is to do with that side of things. It's about 50 to 60% dwarven population, when actually the city itself, the town as a whole, is only about 25% dwarves. So there's definitely a higher proportion. There's still plenty of, as I say, taller people there and larger housing, but there is that sort of percentage, there's a shift in that sense. You also know that there is quite a well-worn path leading out of the city toward the hills and the mountains. It's heavily travelled, both foot traffic but cart traffic as well, and you do see some loads of ores coming in, and also some more crudely refined metals. You see that there's a lot of the ores are refined up there, but some of them are brought in raw into the town itself. You're not a miner. You don't know what the ore is. You just know it's rocks that aren't being cut into bricks. So you're gathering that it's some kind of ore. It's not like in computer games where the gold ore looks golden and silver ore looks silver. It's that they are.
It's kind of grayish, reddish here. Is this maybe iron or is this something else?
Yeah, exactly. You're not knowledgeable about mining and stone, so you don't necessarily know where they're going. But as I said, there's a lot of stuff coming back. And you don't venture all the way up to the mines, because apparently that's a good sort of mile plus away before you start getting to any of the mines that are up there. But that's pretty much where people tend to go, work, come back. You also hear that there is a small dwarven settlement up there. You don't hear much about it. You don't want to interrogate people too much, because you're just trying to get a general gist. You think there might be some undertones there of not hostility toward the taller races, but these dwarves kind of want to live not in what they see as a human settlement as much as they don't have anything against them. They just kind of want to do their own thing in the hills.
So they'd be unwelcoming if I just sort of wandered in.
They do. There's plenty of traders. You don't necessarily think they're unwelcome for strangers. It's just that you get the impression they just prefer to be under the rocks, surrounded by fellow dwarves. You get that kind of gut feeling that they have no problem. They're not xenophobic or anything, but they just prefer it that way. Not that many, but there's certainly, you believe there's a bit of a community there. The poorer community, we've also heard from Niacin's brief trip there, fairly ordinary. There's lots of little, people trying to sell various bits and bobs. There's no underlying hostility there, but there is poverty, definitely. And there's the usual kind of, why have some people got so much and we've got so little kind of thing, but no actual plots that you can tell. You discover that there's quite a few little bits and bobs. You find not in the poorer district, but around the market area where most of the buildings are wooden, you notice that there's a hostel. So it's purely a place where people can crash. It's even cheaper than the Lamp and Lodestone.
Cool.
With an insight of 19, you immediately tell that yes, this is a hostel, Miriam's hostel. You also get the impression that although that mostly it's a big communal area, that people just crash on the floor and find a corner and sleep there where it's dry, the private rooms, you get the impression that if you know what to say and what to ask for, you think it's a brothel. Or at the very least that they have a relationship with ladies, as it were, and gentlemen, that if you know what to say, that you'll be able to get extra services, shall we say.
Cool. I might check that out at some point. A little more directly.
Yes, there is a richer part of town.
Now the question is, am I going there to purchase services or do I go there for work?
Wow, well, you are a pretty boy, aren't you? Fucking hell. Well, I mean, if you want to, for fuck's sake. You also, on the other side of the coin, and also the other side of town, more toward the top end of town, as in literally, it's mostly central, there's what you believe are old fort walls. The walls aren't defensive now, but you get the impression that maybe when this town was first founded, that it would have been obviously on the peak of a hill, it was defensive, and initially you think that there would have been a fort of some sort with a keep. Not a big stone keep, a grandiose castle. It would have been mostly wooden. It would have probably been upgraded to stone walls, but that's now fallen into disrepair as the little outpost that was probably mining outpost turned slowly into a settlement and then into the town that you see today. But in that inner area is clearly where the more opulent people live. The mayor, although he has an office in the trading area, his actual home is here. You will have been in this area a little bit, but you wouldn't have necessarily recognized it before when you went to the Malisters. You do actually now roughly know where the Malisters home is. Again, it's quite a nice little opulent home where, hell, each person has their own bloody bedroom. You got the impression? Crazy. You also find that there is a club there. You don't know anything about the club because there's a pretty tough-looking guy there who's clearly stood outside, and the door doesn't open for anyone. And you know, you see someone approach and they get sent away. Another person approach, say something, and be let in. But it is advertised as the Cloak and Whistle. So you
Cloak
get
and Whistle.
Yeah, the Cloak and Whistle. So you get the impression this is a bit of an exclusive club. It's a very nice looking building. When the door opened briefly and let someone in, you did get the sound of conversation. Not rowdy in any way, but clearly there's entertainment going on in there. Maybe you hear some music, pretty good music. But there's
Techno?
definitely something going on there. You what, sorry?
Techno?
It's pretty much all you can hear from in there, and there's different coloured lights. There's magic going on in there. What's going on?
What is this madness? Cool.
So
This
yeah.
is like exactly the kind of stuff I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Everything you've given me so far.
Cool. You get the impression that this is obviously a club. It's effectively it's going to be an invitation only kind of a place, you think, but ultimately it's just a posh person's pub. There aren't that many really big buildings here. So although it's an area where there's a lot of rich people, there's not a vast difference like you would expect in a large city between the rich and the poor. Yes, they're clearly very rich, but they haven't got, 3-story stone houses. They're not ridiculous. But yes, it's definitely you're getting funny looks. Yes, you're an attractive girl. But you are not dressed for this part of town. You don't get harassed, you don't get stopped. There is free traffic between. There's not like a barrier that you have to somehow get past. So there is free traffic in and out, but clearly people are kind of like, yeah, one of those people from the rest of the town are in that part of town, and they just kind of keep an eye on you.
Do note that if I'm going to the rich side of town, I'm probably wearing my fine clothes, so that's not even good enough. Or
No, that's fine. If you're wearing fine clothes, you can give me a performance check to see just how much you blend in. Not very much. You do get the odd look.
You look pretty, but
Yeah, you get a few looks here and there, but it's mostly a case of I don't know you kind of a look. Nobody approaches you. Everyone's going about their duties. Most of the time you just get ignored, but it seems like most of the time people just ignore each other here anyway. There are a few people that say hello and have little conversations in the street, but generally speaking, everyone's on their way somewhere. You don't get people just hanging out on the street like you will do pretty much everywhere else in the town. And there's certainly no street vendors. And also, there aren't any vendors. There's nowhere to really buy goods here. There's just a lot of housing.
You've entered suburban hell.
Markets bring poor people in. You don't want that near your McMansions, you know?
Rich people don't shop. Rich people have people who shop for them.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll have arrangements where they don't shop, they order things. They place orders. Shop. Disgusting.
Some large woman comes in and delivers items periodically. Some sort of Amazon.
Oh, fucking Avon calling. Oh, for goodness sakes. So yeah, that's the general gist that you get. You see that
It's the Amazon unseen servants.
would actually kind of work. What's the maximum range that an unseen servant can go from the person casting it, I wonder?
It's not very far.
Yeah. Or what if you could cast it on an item and then the unseen servant just carries the item along with it? You see?
An enchanted delivery box. It carries itself.
Yes, it technically would work, but either way. So yeah, you find that. As far as things that might look a little bit pilfery, I'm going to answer this question anyway, whether or not you were specifically asking for it anyway. In the richer areas, there are more guards, but not a ridiculous number, and it doesn't look like the houses themselves have personal guards, but you don't know what's in them. So there could be that there's people inside that are guarding. Generally speaking, from those odd times when you see things through shutters, there's even a couple of places here that have glass windows.
Weird.
Yep. It's a bit bobbly, bit bubbly glass. It's you can't really see in too much, but it lets light in. You get the impression that there's a lot of servants here, a lot of people working in these houses. So even if it's a house where only a couple of people live, you get the impression there's going to be at least one person who's a servant, probably 2 or 3. Servants are actually pretty cheap, in fairness. So if you've got a little bit of money you can afford to live here, you can definitely afford to pay someone to, at the very least, be a day servant. Probably have someone at night, like a scullery maid or something like that, working in the kitchen, where the actual proper chef only comes in during the day, kind of a deal. So yeah, that's the general gist. As far as places in town, you think that if you were going to try and do anything criminal, you would say that it's either going to be in the market part of town, the slightly poorer part, or in the merchanty bit where the map is based. Ultimately, you guys are probably going to find most of the things you want to do probably on this map area, the sort of the merchant area.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, it's strange.
You should,
Weird how that works.
you should be as ambitious as Quarter and just make the Thieves Guild.
Seriously, man. Shoot
I
the
gotta,
world.
establish myself a little bit, buy some property, and then, then dig out several layers of hidden basement, including, a layer
You
of
could
death
hire
traps.
Betty.
No, I've got the perfect cover for you. Create a guild of some other name, and then it's secretly the Thieves Guild.
Now,
Yeah, create
you don't
the
steal anything.
Adventurers Guild.
Yeah. You don't steal
Underneath
anything.
the
You
Thieves
wait.
Guild.
You wait.
Well,
you
no,
gather
then
your
have the
thieves.
Themes Guild as a separate organization running under that.
Yeah.
Make them completely separate, but in the same place. Yeah.
It
Start
happens
up
to
his
be
own
run by
mafia.
the same person.
now,
Well, I mean,
Start
obviously, at
extorting
this
all
point, if
the
you're running
shop
admin, you won't be doing as much of it yourself.
Who of the guards, if you've got a reputable adventurers guild and they help with defeating and slaying monsters in the area, and they're bringing back
Monsters?
these weird and wonderful treasures and stuff like that, and
this isn't a high campaign where people are killing fucking Bahirs and weird ancient fucking hydras and have demigods plane shifting around. This is the lower end of the scale campaign, at the edge of civilization. You don't have an adventurers guild. You guys are this is not a place that's seen a massive amount of excitement. It's not. It's a pretty big settlement, but it's not a place. There are guild buildings. There's there's various places that deal with the trades. There's a general trade guild which covers people who are craftsmen. So it's not that there's a blacksmiths guild. There is a crafts guild which covers carpentry, blacksmithing.
there's a first for everything.
Well, exactly. Oh yeah, you don't know what the laws or what kind of permits you might need or permissions or competition kind of laws might be in this particular town. So yes, if you did just randomly start a blacksmithing, armorsmithing, weaponsmithy guild, for example, because you have someone in the party who can do that kind of thing, you don't know what the reaction would be, or whether you'd get shut down legally or whether you'd get shut down illegally. You don't know.
So what I'm hearing is we need a lawyers guild.
Lawyers guild. Or you could just
Don't
ask.
tempt me.
You could just ask the mayor's office, which is, strangely enough, in the merchant district. That's something that someone finds out.
You're saying criminal options are in the merchants district. Mayor's office is also in the merchants district.
But yes, there's. It's actually.
I don't know, you're talking about that, it just made me think of the Terry Pratchett thing in Ankh-Morpork with the Guild of Accountants that paid like $20 tax in a year and apply for $200,000 in rebate.
Yes.
It's tax deductible if it's pickpocketed, right?
Oh, for fuck's sake, there is something like that, isn't there, in Ankh-Morpork? Yeah, fuck's sake.
The what?
In Ankh-Morpork, isn't there some kind of like pickpocketing is tax deductible, isn't it? And stuff like that, or something.
It's the Thieves Guild. They
Thieves.
have a quota of the amount of theft that's allowed to happen.
No
in the
more,
city.
otherwise you're in trouble. Quick, take the money.
But they're also responsible for making sure that no more than that happens.
Yes. Yeah, he
You
just
know
fucking
less as well. I imagine.
legalize
And then there's the
it.
Guild of Seamstresses, which is not what it is.
No, I
Not
imagine
what
not.
it sounds like.
But anyway, the point is probably, I mean, some kind of weird, freaky Frankensteinian cult. Anyway, yeah, the mayor's office is actually at the top, and I will actually, because, you know, you might want to actually see where
Scope it
that-
out.
Yeah, you might want to scope it out. It is actually Orkon. It is to your
Yes.
north, just there.
Excellent.
So wait, like where, if we zoom out, if I'm pointing to this point, is that where it is?
That is the corner of the building, so it's just to the left and to the north. You can see just above where Orkon is. Maybe you can, or maybe you can't. You
I can't
probably
see anything.
But either way, he
My-
can
my
show
game
you this
crashed.
later.
I see all.
I will even turn around very quickly. 1 second while I very quickly do stuff. Because I just knew that I'd end up having to fill out the insides of a building. Because you can poke your head in kind of thing. Where the
Well, I'm
fuck
glad
is
you
it?
had the forethought.
Yeah. Well, there is a mayor's office. It needs to be a thing.
This is fantastic detail here.
It took me a while to make this. Obviously, I didn't draw the graphics, but I've assembled it all from the stuff that I've had access to.
Of course.
Okay, Orkon. You spot inside. That's basically the main room. There's a door off to the side, and you notice that this is people come in here, and you can see there's paperwork stuff being done. You get the impression there might be some decisions on legal things that maybe that's outside the realm of the guard, so maybe permit related things. Maybe there's a stall been set up outside of another person's shop front, and that they're trying to get it removed, but the guards are like, well, they're not committing a crime, what do you want us to do? So they're going to the mayor's office to basically get them gone in the legal fashion. So that you overhear something going on like that with that place.
Cool.
So yes, there is that. There's a couple of guild buildings. I mean, I can start spending loads and loads of time telling you exactly which buildings are what guilds. I'm not going to bother because until you actually get there.
More of a ask if I really need to.
Yeah. Now, the big thing. Leave the best till last. You are keeping an eye out for particular signs. Signs.
Some sort of marks.
Certain
perhaps.
marks, yes. You don't see any. You wander around this area at first, and you don't see anything. You wander around, obviously, in the poorer district. You don't see anything there, but it's not surprising that you don't see much there, to be fair. There's no secure place to hide your stuff, and there's nothing secret in those sort of areas. You go to the market area, which is off to the east, so it's cheaper than this merchant district. Most of the people live there, and there are other businesses, bakeries, etc. You don't see anything there either. And you're beginning to think, hang on a second, this is a big settlement. There's got to be some kind of activity going on here. Nothing in the rich district that you can see. Toward the end, you do actually, and it's very subtle. It's only once the light is quite low in the sky you realise that it becomes even visible. You realise that... Oh, let me double check something actually.
Ooh.
Is that done? Is that done? Is that done? Oh, there is something that I'd forgotten to draw a line there. Do, 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 do. Okay. Down at a particular alleyway, which initially you can't really see down because of the jagged teeth of doom.
Yes.
You come across this little place here. Now, at first, you look down to the south, and you see what looks like a library. People come in and go, reading books, mostly craftsmen, you notice. People are doing their thing there's not a huge amount of activity. There's a couple of houses to the north, unremarkable houses to the north. And you are about to kind of pass by. The sun's getting a bit low in the sky. And as because as the name of the town suggests, and I've explained before, the sun does set over toward the mountains. So the town is set into shadow earlier on in the evening than you would expect. But there is still plenty of light in the sky. You notice that for maybe 15-20 minutes, give or take, so a third of a mark,
Yep.
you notice that a sign appears at the bottom of one of these posts, just about there. A mark that you recognize, indicating that this building is owned by a particular kind of guild. Or at least that's what the mark suggests. The fact that the mark isn't visible in the day, isn't visible in night, only during sunset at a particular time is very interesting. You don't know how this has been done. You assume magic, you don't know. But the door only opens under certain circumstances, but you think that anyone can pretty much just wander in. Because people come and go. People come and go with books. They look like normal tradespeople. You recognize one of these people that's gone in there, and
It's Niacin, isn't it?
Taught me.
You recognize one of these
Secret
people.
leader of the Thieves Guild.
I was stealing cards, I'll just point that out.
Yeah, he never gave them back. Tyanir's like, oh, it's like, I can't believe they were cheating. And he's like, he starts playing patience or something because he's waiting for his turn, telling me what he's going to do for the whole week. And he's just playing the card. And he's like, hang on, I've only got 3 aces. Hang on a second, 2 of my kings are missing. What the hell? Oh, the bastard. So yes, you notice that you think that you could pretty much just knock on the door and walk in. There doesn't seem to be any password that you can see. And I say one of the people that wandered in there is actually one of the guys who's working for one of the tools merchants. There's a tool merchant just off the main road. It's actually not too far from the west from here. And that's like a normal place that seems to not many makes, but mostly sort of repair and sell, buys tools. And he's just gone in there, and he comes out with a book, and he just leaves with it. You catch the title. It looks like it's some kind of descriptive book on tools and things like that. So it's sort of like a tome of lore about his profession, trade. So it looks like kind of a normal kind of library. But that mark is definitely there. Do you want to go in, or what do you want to do?
Oh, sure. Just sort of to wander in, not to look too obvious, but...
Well, you seem to see that the door stays closed. People knock on the door opens. People come out the door. There doesn't seem to be any... The door isn't open all the time, so I'm just going to assume you knock on the door.
I'll knock on the door, yes.
Okay, yeah. The door opens. There is a gentleman who, basically, if you want to move yourself... Hang on a second. Bear with me just 1 second. I'm going to have to do...
There's the point where Izixs knocked too loudly and the librarian shushes him.
You're banned forever. Leave.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. No, it's actually an orangutan opens the door. No, I'm kidding. If we're gonna do, ook. Yes, exactly that. 1 second. I'm just gonna do this because it's got to be done. It's got to be done properly. If I'm gonna do this at all, it's got to be done properly. Put a little thing there, and a little thing there, and a little thing there, and a little thing there. And I would say that is almost done. See, the thing is, guys, I was like, the reason why this session's late is I was finishing the fucking map. And I still haven't put all the doors and walls and everything in.
We appreciate the work you do for us.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
It was actually quite fun, but I'm not going to tell you guys that. Oh, shit. Okay, right. You can happily wander in. The guy who opens the door, he's maybe in his 40s. He looks like he's, fairly fit and able. He pays you no attention. He opens the door, lets you in. I assume you enter.
Mm-hmm.
He closes the door behind you. He doesn't lock it. He just closes it. It clicks shut, and he walks back to the chair behind the desk, and he carries on reading a book. There are lots of candles dotted about. They're all quite a way away from the books, but ultimately, it's a fairly lit room. There are books, there are scrolls. They're very neat and nicely laid out. There are a couple of other people here sitting down to the desks that are to the right. You think you recognize one of them that sat down there, this lady, but you don't know where from. She's dressed quite well, so maybe you saw her in the richer district. You're not sure. Nobody really pays you any attention. You just walk in, have a little look around. You see there's lots of books. None of the shelves have got any labels on or anything, and you don't see any further signs. It's basically just that. Nobody's paying any attention to you.
That
So
works, actually.
Feel free to have a wander around if you want.
I'll mostly be getting on to, browsing some of the books. If I find anything of particular interest, I'll maybe have a look, but otherwise I'll maybe spend 15-20 minutes here and then probably head out, at least for this visit.
Okay. Well, give me something like a D20 roll if you're just going to randomly just pull out a book. And we'll see what a D20 gives you. 18. Okay, you pull out a thin book. It's leather bound. It's been looked after, but clearly the binding has been replaced at some point because it's a lot newer than the pages within. There's basic parchment pages. In a very neat script, so whichever scribe copied this out, because it's clearly been copied from something, because it's all the same ink, same height, same width. It's not a journal that someone's added to over years. This is something that's been copied from another source, and it describes various techniques for weaving. It's just got some little fancy diagrams, little techniques. It goes in, as you flick through, it goes into some of the materials to be used for weaving, suggestions that certain types of structurally certain types of weaving require certain kinds of woods and other materials. And it's a book about weaving.
Fascinating.
It would be useful if you wanted to learn how to weave, or you wanted to sharpen your game, or you wanted to, learn a bit more about things. There's not a huge amount of stuff in here, but the fact that you know fuck all about weaving, because I'm guessing you're not proficient with weaving tools or have a weaving background. Yeah, this is the kind of thing where you're like, well, okay, would be quite informative. It's nice.
Seems like a very knowledge-based sort of location.
Oh yeah, there's lots of books here. I mean, give me another D20 if you want to have a little look at something else.
Ooh.
I'm gonna assume you wander off to another shelf, or are you staying on this current shelf?
Oh, I'll wander off, say over here.
There. Okay. You pick another. What was it? A 15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You find a bound tome. It's wood underneath, you believe, that it's bound with, but it has been then itself wrapped with leather, so it's quite a nice book. It's got a decent spine on it. Inside there is actually paper, not parchment, which is quite nice because it's quite rare in the sense of things, but it's a very nice book, so you open it gently, and inside there are various what you recognize to be music. What languages do you know? Because the music notes you recognize, but what languages do you know?
Elvish and Sylvan.
Okay, you don't know
Uncommon, of course.
Uncommon, yeah. You don't know what language this is? It might be one of the more primitive races. It might be some kind of Orcish script, possibly. You're not 100% sure, but it's definitely not Dwarven, and it's definitely not any of the ones you know. But there's inscriptions, and there's various music notes and melodies, and there's various writings between them, but it's pretty much all I suppose it'd be the ancient equivalent of a sheet music. It would be tunes that you could literally, if you understood how to read music. Are you proficient in any musical instruments?
I do not believe I am.
Okay. So you don't know what it says, and you don't know how to read music, but you're half intelligent enough to be able to understand that this is instruction on various kinds of music and melodies and things like that.
Yes, I've seen some sheet music before, and I don't know what it means, but
So yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, this is kind of insightful, but I'm not sure if I'm going to spend too much time here. I'll probably finish around here and maybe look at one more book right over this way.
One thing you do notice, you see that chair to your north?
Yes.
Sat in that chair, there's a gentleman who looks like he's just flicking through a journal. He's got a quill, a very small one, positioned behind his ear. You can't see an inkwell, but he's flicking through the journal and he's reading things. And you can't see what the journal's about. It's quite a small book, but he's definitely keeping an eye on the place. He doesn't look like a guard, but you get the impression he's not actually really reading the journal. He's just kind of watching people.
Yes. He's using that observation skill.
Quite possibly. So yeah, give me another d20 and we'll see what you pick up this time. 19.
I'm rolling pretty well here.
Yeah. This seems to be a book about small native creatures to not this part of the world, but some other part of the world. It's written in common, and it's describing tree rodents, burrowing creatures, small hunting creatures like sort of lynxes and things like that, and it's describing their habitats, their behaviors, their whether they're nocturnal, how much their pelts can fetch, things to watch out for, things that, tips on if you're hunting them and you're wanting to skin them, bits that can be valuable for certain things. So it's kind of like a hunter's guide, but for an area of the world that you're not currently in. You don't recognize the names of the places that it's describing. But yes, it's some kind of hunting journal that is very crudely sort of wrapped up. And yeah, it's basically sort of instruction. This one does look like it's been added to over a period of time. But the way that a lot of the diagrams and the pictures of creatures have been drawn, it's very, very detailed. Although it's clearly been penned by different inks and different quills and at different times, it's all been quite lovingly created. Like whoever had produced this probably was out in the field doing this stuff and really did want to spend time doing this. A lot of these creatures, although you don't recognize some of the creatures, you get the impression that they are a very good representation of said creatures. Proportions look right.
Very realistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Shadwell's own Attenborough. How adorable.
Well, you get the impression it's not for this area. So whoever originally created this, it was from an area, and it's this little reference material has found its way into this little library.
Fantastic. Well, I don't necessarily have a reason to go looking for trouble at the moment, so I'll finish my browsing here, and I will head on out then.
Yeah, it looks like the handle just works from the inside, and you can just let yourself out.
Whee! And then they come and abduct me in the night.
They take note of everybody who comes to learn, because learning is evil. It's like it's a trap. It's basically entrapment. It's ran by the guard. All books are illegal. You're all gonna be fucking.
Education breeds heresy.
And heresy breeds what's worse than heresy? No, there isn't. It breeds your imprisonment.
Super heresy.
Heresy breeds death is what it breeds. 'Cause then they kill you.
Well, yes. Heresy breeds imprisonment in a dungeon. So yes, as you exit, you notice that as you already kind of knew from previous times, that sign is definitely only visible during that third of a mark, quarter of a mark at sunset. You give me just an intelligence roll.
Intelligence activate. Sort of.
That's good enough. That's good enough. You were wondering initially, because you went in there, and although, there's people keeping an eye on the place, it's books, it's fragile, you don't want it candles knocked over, so there's got to be someone keeping an eye on the place. So at first you're kind of thinking, well, is it like a really old sign, something that's left over from something? But then you're like looking at this, and you're trying to make it not obvious, because you don't want to be staring at this thing.
Yep.
But you kind of look, although you can't see the sign now, when you kind of walk past it, and you kind of, I don't know, you fiddle with, I don't know, whatever it is that you're fiddling with, you're looking around the corner, just wandering, you realize that it does look like the sign, some of the stone etching, there is a very faint groove, looks like it's quite fresh, and you get the impression that this has been topped up, renewed, whatever it is that they do to make it glow only at certain times, you get the impression it is new. So...
Oh, upkept.
Yes.
Interesting.
Beyond that, you don't know.
Well, maybe at some point I'll be looking into finding a proper way to introduce myself. For the very least, if they wish to make use of my own my own capabilities, to be to integrate myself well into the local society, the local scene, as it were.
Absolutely.
But I'm not looking to necessarily step on someone else's turf or cause trouble at the moment, sort of.
Absolutely. No, that's fair enough. Okay, well, that's pretty much your week done,
Excellent.
I would say. Okay, guys, let's get on to the next person's week. Niacin, do you know what you're doing, or are you just going to be randomly doing something with Adrik?
I've had some time to think, so I think I pretty much know what I'm going to be doing.
Okay, you're going to have to wait, Tyanir, sorry. You're the last one.
It shouldn't be very long.
Okay.
Well, first of all, there's that dragon shaped jade figurine
Okay,
that's
yeah,
in our party loots.
there is
I've
still some
been
loot,
meaning
yeah.
to get that evaluates up. Damn, my game just crashed again. So I'm at some point during the week I'm gonna go and get that evaluated at the jeweler's shop that we sold the red rubies to.
Okie dokie.
And then for the most part, I'm basically going to be splitting my time between doing the gardening or creating a garden at Palor's temple, as Adrik had requested of me.
Yeah?
And then the rest of the time I'm going to be wandering around where the lake is.
Yes. There is
And,
actually a docks.
Okay.
It's not
and
a
there-
very complex docks, but there is a docks where there are various wooden jetties that go out into the lake, yes.
Sitting at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away.
Now, I assume people are going to be fishing there.
There's a lot of fishing vessels. There's a lot of fishmongers selling fish. There's other people. There is an open place to eat. It looks like it's probably just a fishmongers and they just cook some of the fish and let people eat it for a price. It's not a restaurant. It's not an inn. It's just an open area with some chairs and tables that they've cobbled together and a few barrels that have been broken and not waterproofed anymore. So yes, there's a lot of fishiness going on, if you'll forgive the pun. So yes, there's definitely fishing going on. There are people along the jetties that are actually doing fishing directly from some of the outcroppings where they can. You don't really see them catch many fish, but you also realize quite soon that the lake doesn't just suddenly become deep. And then the lake, to be fair, I mean, you're told it's a lake. You all know that it's a lake from what you've been told. You would have assumed it was an ocean. You cannot see the other side.
Well, does it have freshwater or saltwater?
This is freshwater. It's a freshwater lake.
Okay,
It's
so
like
it's
Michigan.
definitely a lake. Yeah.
It's definitely a lake. I mean, everybody calls it a lake. But yes, it is a huge lake. And they say that, the fishing fleets go out into the lake. Literally, it's not really a fleet. Calling them a fleet's probably the wrong word. But, the fishing vessels go out. People go out there to fish. There are a couple of guards on the docks. And as people are approaching their little... Because generally it's boats. There aren't really ships per se here. But as people go onto their boats, there's definitely papers being checked. Not like really religiously, more like kind of like traffic wardens checking tickets. You could probably get away once or twice not having the right paperwork, but at some point you're going to get checked. So you know what I mean. They're checking periodically, and they're assuming that most people have the appropriate papers. Whatever the papers are, you assume it's some kind of license to fish or something you don't know, or maybe it's like a receipt for docking or berthing charges. You don't know. You're not too up on said things.
No.
Being a fucking smelly person that turns into a bear.
No, I don't really have sea legs. But what I will do is maybe see about getting a fishing rod.
Yeah, there's plenty of places around where you can actually get... are you actually proficient in fishing in any way?
Nope.
Okay. You can get some basic stuff to go fishing. There are places around that are selling rods of various sorts. None of them are particularly high tech. Most of it is going to be, you get some line, you get some hooks, you get some bait, and it's a case of, you know, you assemble it yourself kind of a thing. You know, there aren't
Okay.
pre-built ones, but you can get everything that you need in order to go fishing if you want. So yeah, if you want to grab some fishing equipment, you can put together what you believe is, from what you can see people using, and it's going to be about to get. I mean, okay, are you like getting an afternoon's worth of fishing stuff, or are you kind of like, I want this to be in my inventory so that every now and again I can go fishing when I come across water?
It's gonna be in whatever the people that are there, whatever they're doing, my character's gonna copy them. So they seem to be more the type that have all their stuff together, so he'll probably just get whatever it is. So he'll get like a bait box and a proper rod and proper hooks.
Okay, well, based on what a lot of these people are doing, you get the impression these people are trying to catch food for their dinner or something like
Yes.
that. They tend to be quite poor people. You're getting the impression. You can definitely get together a full set of fishing tackle for about 8 silver in total.
Okay.
That's basically all the lines, the rod itself. You've got the various, you know, containers and boxes, the hooks, the floats, the weights, all kinds of stuff that you need to do the various fishing stuff. There's even a couple of funny coloured, like feathery things that are attached to hooks. You're not even really sure what they're for.
No, I have no idea.
They're kind of pretty colourful things. You're not sure why.
People just seem to put them on. I
Well, some
can't figure
people
out
do,
why, but
some
yeah.
people put maggots on, and some people put worms on, and some people put other bits on there, and some of them, they're just feathers, so you assume fish eat feathers. You probably know that's not true, being a druid.
No, but still,
yeah.
my character doesn't understand that, so he'll just assume
Yeah.
that they're being eaten.
Yeah.
Because why else would they put them on the hook?
Yeah. So yeah, knock off 8 silver pieces and just put fishing tackle. It's a fairly standard kind of set of fishing tackle that's got all the various bits that you need.
Cool.
Do you want to actually give it a go?
Yes.
Well, I would say if you're going to do a little bit of fishing, let's just go for it and say that you're going to give me just an intelligence check at disadvantage because you've never done this before.
Yes.
You've no fucking clue what you're doing. You're just trying to copy other people.
I was about to say, it's a half-orc making an intelligence check at disadvantage.
I mean, even if it wasn't at disadvantage, you would have got a 4. And that's a saving throw, so...
Yep.
Which...
Oh, that was a saving throw, sorry.
So actually, you rolled... You just get a 1.
Nat 1.
I got a 1. Yeah.
You got a 1
Does
as
he
a nat
injure
1.
himself?
No, he doesn't injure himself, it's fishing. If he was
I
kind of...
hook someone else. I hook one of the other anglers.
Hey, if you want me to ruin somebody else's meal with your fumble, I mean, that's fine by me. I can run with that, and we can roll initiative and...
Get your lines tangled.
Don't cross
was
the
a
lines!
It was a nat 1. I'm not opposed to it.
To be honest, no, you're not muscling in on anywhere anybody else is in, because you don't. I get the impression your character's not the sort of person to squeeze in between two fishermen. Hey up,
No.
lads! Caught anything nice today? You're the kind
No,
of like.
he's going to be as far away from
Yes,
the others
exactly.
as possible.
I know your character well enough to know that he's a bit of an introvert, so yeah, he's not gonna go nuts like that. Yeah, so you cast your line and you kind of look at what the other people are doing and you do stuff and you're like, okay, and you see every now and again one of those guys pulls the line out, there's nothing on it, they put it back in, you do the same. Every now and again they just tug on theirs, and sometimes they pull and sometimes they don't, and sometimes there's a fish on the end and sometimes there isn't, and you're like, you don't really get what the hell's going on. At one point there is a tug, and you're like, oh cool, so you start pulling it and reeling it in, and whatever it is gets away, and you lose some bait, and you just basically have a very unproductive time and achieve nothing except losing one of the hooks, which is not a big problem. There's a few other hooks in the tackle box, but put a note on there that you've lost a hook,
Okay.
because you just didn't know what you were doing. You know, this is probably a minimal cost to you, really.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's not even half a copper piece or
Oh
whatever.
no, it'll be work. You know, it'll be more than, it won't be a silver piece, but it'll be at least a copper piece worth. You know,
Okay.
the metal hooks are quite intricate work, and it's pretty much the only real part that's actually metal, other than a few other bits here and there, that's the main metalwork of this whole kit. Well, more or less. So yeah, you achieve fuck all.
So the fishing escapade, days and days of attempting this, was a complete failure.
Okay. But you are helping Adrik. Is there anything specific? I tell you what, I'm going to ask that question right at the end after Tyanir's had his turn. Otherwise, we'll be here at 2 in the morning if I ask Adrik for his input anymore.
Hey, hold on a second. I think Izixs was the longest.
Yeah, but never mind. But he didn't take up anybody else's turn. So, moving on. I would say, so you're basically wandering around, as you say, check the lake out. You want to check the value of the jade figurine. So you want to see what you can get from that. So, okay, you head to the to that merchant dude, Kavin Corbury, the fat dude who's hates women, or that's what you think anyway. Maybe that's what is the truth. Who knows? And he sees you come in, and he doesn't sneer. He just kind of looks at you a little oddly, because he's probably not seen anyone dressed quite the way you are. And says, "How can I help you, sir?"
Hello. Me and my colleagues come and spoken to you before. We were the ones that sold to you the large, valuable red gems.
Ah, yes, I remember. Yes, very clever.
And I was hoping if you would be able to tell me what this little figurine was worth. We found it in the same location.
Yes, Izixs, well done. Congratulations on your successful translation. Let's have a look. It's rather nice. It's a little worn here and there. It's quite an old item. You found this. Where did you find this?
In the same location as the gems we sold you. Dark cavern beneath the world.
Interesting. I've seen similar things, but...
There were a number of statues of such creatures around in that location.
Yes, quite. Well, I would happily... yes, I think I can probably pass this on to... I have a collector in Cragsholm that will probably be able to deal with such things. I'd be happy to give you... I would say 18 gold pieces. Would that be a reasonable price, sir?
What do you think? 18 gold?
I think I want to keep it for 18 gold.
It hurts. It hurts the soul, because there's no way a nicely made jade dragon is 18 gold.
Yeah, that's why I'm keeping it.
Yes, well, Niacin's made the mistake of associating himself with Orkon.
Yes, unfortunately I have.
No, it's more you're associating with Callie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
I was the pleasant one.
Anyway, I'm going to respond.
I was the good cop.
I'm going to respond to Kevin. I think that for such a price, I wouldn't like to part with it. I've grown a little attached to it.
Well, so be it. And he, gets up and you're not sure what he's doing. He's checking something under the counter across from the way. He's obviously busying himself doing whatever it is that he does. That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. I'm going to take it from the party loot though, and I'm going to pay in 18 gold.
18 gold. Is everybody okay with him paying 18 gold into the party loot?
No,
because it's worth a wow.
I got a valuation.
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm going down to check as well. So
Okay,
Objections all about it is not that cheap. Don't
Yeah,
even
nice
try
try, Wiz. Nice try.
That's what he said. That's what I was going to pay.
Hey, it's up to the party whether or not it's worth that for the party.
Let's get it valued by somebody who maybe isn't trying to fleece you.
where about in town do you think I could find something
Maybe
like
it
that?
takes longer than now.
Yeah,
Fair
like
enough.
we can keep items. Like I still have a scroll that I am keeping till I find some dwarf librarians. That's probably gonna net us some money.
Right, well, I'm gonna negotiate with them and ask if I could keep it, and they're gonna say no. So I'm gonna be like, fine, and put it back in the loot.
Yep, fair enough.
I'm not gonna fight them.
I don't
over
know
it.
why you guys are so skeptical. This guy, you sold to him in the past. I don't understand why you'd be so skeptical about this assessment. Are you saying that he's not skilled enough to evaluate a little jade figurine in the shape of a dragon?
No, we just know that he's Orkon's first mark.
Good luck with that place, by the way.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, it would be a
It's
tricky.
alright, I think we can safely come to the conclusion as a party, fuck that place.
Well, that's your biased opinion, but that's a typical thing that a
Or
woman
maybe
would say.
for any future
I know,
dealings
right?
we have in this town with the jeweler, we just need to send Daniel or Adrik.
Or Orkon and a mustache.
Okay, so
Just
I
send
can do
Callie. That'll be the worst thing ever to happen to him.
well, it depends because the thing is, if you think about it, you know, a nice looking lass might actually be exactly what's needed. So yeah, Orkon.
I do have a disguise kit. Actually, I have two.
Oh my god. So you probably could. It's a fake
So you
wig, some
don't just
blusher.
have a mustache, you've also got the funny nose glasses. Perfect.
with the funny eyes on the springs.
Damn straight.
Hello, I am Mr. Incognito.
Gerald Alibi, at your service.
Rolls a 20 on the performance check or whatever, and it's like, oh yes, Mr. Incognito, yes, it's good to see you again. Now you've done something with your hair. It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Yes, come this way.
Yes, I grew some.
Oh dear. So okay, you
Down to business.
Niacin. You failed at fishing. You failed at selling a jade figurine. What else are you thinking of trying?
Well, the only other thing I was going to do, other than resting and enjoying my time staying at the tavern. Yes, I'm going to be staying at the Lamp and Lodestone. The only other things than that I'm going to be doing is tending the garden that Adrik had specified, but you said we'll get to that
Well,
afterwards.
I mean, if Adrik wants to add anything, we'll leave it till the end.
Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that I use my druidic focus and I take a little cutting from it and I plant it in the garden there as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay, give me a What are you? You're gonna have you're proficient at like a herbalist kit or something like that, aren't you? I would have thought.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, hang on. I have a herb. What? Yeah, I'm proficient at herbalism with a herbalist kit.
Okay. Right. Well, give me. Why is someone saying it's my birthday? No, it's not my birthday. Why are people being weird? Okay. That's just odd. I'm just getting birthday wishes, good wishes in Telegram, and I have no idea why.
Well, happy birthday.
It's not my birthday.
It is now, damn it.
I mean,
Say it's your birthday.
I don't remember when your birthday is, but
know it's
I
not
know I've
now.
got it. I know I've got it written down somewhere. I just need to go find the thing that has it written on.
Fair enough. Okay then. Give me an intelligence check proficiency because of your herbalism kit, and also give me I would say a nature check.
Also with...
Well, that would be.
Yeah, that will just be regular.
Yeah, that's just a normal nature check. So if you're proficient at nature, which I believe you are, that's at advantage. I'm not sure 100% why, but.
Didn't you say I must
proficient.
do it with proficiency?
Yeah. Don't do an intelligent. Just an intelligence check with proficiency, but that's advantage. That's something completely different.
Okay. Well, how do I do it with proficiency?
Well, we just add your proficiency bonus to it at the end.
Right, okay.
Um.
That's nature. Okay.
Right, your nature stuff's good. And give me an intelligence.
Another intelligence. Okay.
Because Adrik's running around in circles for no apparent reason. So that'll be a 13 on your intelligence check. Okay, yeah. You do pretty well sorting out the garden. The garden has been tended. It's not something that's been ignored, and it's not really a garden as such. There's a few little herbs and spices there, pretty much entirely for making food taste nicer, but also to form a sort of pleasant environment for people who want to meditate outside. Because the Polar Temple is a little bit out from the center of town, where the fuck is Adrik wandering around to? Because it's a little bit further out from town, it's not as densely packed, and you get the impression, both you and Adrik quite quickly realize that that's the reason why it's not in the middle of town. It wants to have a nice wide open space, wants to have a bit of an outside area, wants to have a bit of breathing room. There's also, I mean, as you're going and tending the garden, you realize that there are, not in the garden itself, but there are some graves out there. They're not really strongly marked, but they are there off to the side. Again, they're not tended incredibly well, but they're clearly, they're kept clear. Adrik's just like going nuts, wandering around.
Okay.
Yes, that is just a collapsed building, Adrik.
Shall I plant some flowers around the graves?
If you want to. You get the impression that people, as long as you're respectful, people don't actually mind too much.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay. So yeah, you do pretty well. You don't ruin anything. You tend to the flowers a little bit. There's one of the acolytes there, young woman who's also seems to be tending the flowers. She accepts that you clearly know more about this than she does, and she sort of helps you a bit more, rather than doing her own thing. She seems to be kind of interested in you because you're weird, but also you clearly know what you're doing. So she's also interested in trying to pick up a few things from you in that sense.
She'll also be really nice to you because Adrik has obviously come across and been like, by the way, this is Niacin.
Yeah.
To the garden. Bye.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I wouldn't
Obviously.
have done this without him basically
I
telling
know.
people why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been introduced. You've met Frenor, the Pelor priest, and yeah, you've been introduced to people in general. So yeah, that's pretty much that. As far as the week goes, if you wanted to do any extra fishing, we can do that if you wanted, and do some rolls for that. Because you're going to have plenty of time. You don't really have anything else other than helping a bit at the temple, checking out the evaluation of something which you've done. You are really like going completionist, Adrik. Just wandering around the town.
Yeah, I'll do some more fishing.
Okay.
So, how many rolls?
Just give me like three flat intelligence checks, I would have said. Don't go that way, Adrik, you bastard.
I found a place in your map that's fucked.
Yes, because I haven't done everything, because obviously, it was rushed.
Limited amounts of time in the universe.
Exactly. Honestly, you know what? You make something, and people just want to break it,
Well, yeah, we like testing limits.
Just rude.
Isn't that the whole point of these things? Like, find where the breaking points are.
No, actually no. It's pretend that it's perfect because your DM spent a lot of time and effort doing things. I think that was it.
Well, no, you pretend that it's imperfect in a way that real life things are imperfect.
What, the fact that he can phase through behinds of buildings? No.
Yeah,
That's
like real
hardly
life.
real life.
No, there's a different type of imperfection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
that's
you guys can't face the buildings?
It's the fact that Adrik managed to find his way into an area that's like behind the scenes. It's like behind the cardboard cutouts type thing of the buildings.
The town's a lie. It's all fake.
It is,
It's just a movie set.
Can't you just delete his token and then put a different one there instead, so that he has to re-explore the whole map?
I mean, I think I can reset the map for him.
You'd have to reset the map, Fog.
Yeah. And then I would move everybody but Adrik around to reveal everything that's already been revealed for them. And then you would be very unhappy.
No, I wouldn't give a damn.
Anyway, so, yeah, let's say, so your intelligence checks, okay, fine, right, those second two aren't too bad. You have another go at doing the fishing, and again, it's like you're spending a lazy couple of hours just sat there, and you start recognizing a couple of the regulars, and you get the impression that, yeah, these people are just fishing for their food, and not everybody's catching fish. Catching fish at this sort of place doesn't seem to be especially common, but you think it's because it's quite shallow at this part of the lake. So, you know, the fish are probably keeping away. It's a big lake. They're probably just instinctively, after so many decades, kind of knowing not to go this side of the lake. But nevertheless, fish do get caught because they're not very clever. And after a while, like maybe on your third day or something, with a 17, you do actually catch a wee fish.
Yay, I'm getting better.
It's about, I mean, tail to head, it's about 3 inches long.
Sweet. I will use it as a garnish.
Use it as a garnish. Do you know anything about, you know, butchering fish? I can't remember what you would actually.
Not butchering fish.
It's not
cooking.
What is the?
Be survival.
Yeah,
No, I know it's survival. I couldn't think of the literal name. There is something that it's called.
Gutting.
Yeah, that's what you do as part of the job. But I think there is an actual name for someone, like a butcher carves up carcasses of animals. I'm pretty sure that there is a name. I thought that's someone who
Fishmonger
sells.
just sells the end product, don't they?
Yeah, I thought so. But someone who
Like
actually.
monger is specifically somebody who sells something, right?
Yes, correct. I thought there was a name specifically for someone who guts fish. That's not including the word fish and gutting. I don't know. But either way, yeah, you don't know much about that, but we can do a survival check if you want to see if you can, this tiny, tiny little fish, and manage to actually gut it properly and get all the bits out and get some, you know, a tiny bit of snack out of it.
Sure.
Well, I mean, it's fish, it's nice, you know. Go on, give me a survival. That's all right. That's good enough. It's only a little fucking fish. Yeah, you've got a little bit in the tackle that you've got, and getting a tiny little knife is not a difficult thing. It's a fairly easy thing. So yeah, you take off the head, take off the tail, cut a few fins off, scale it a little bit, descale it a little bit. The scales are minuscule. It's not difficult to do so. Gut it, take all the bits out, and you think you're doing pretty well. You know, you could probably cook it now. It's still on the bone, but at least now it's kind of safe to cook and you don't end up with a load of entrails, which of course isn't going to be very pleasant unless you're a bear, which you could become a bear and eat the fish and then transform back. I mean,
You might have more Moloch fishing like that.
Actually. I think he's right.
one thing you do notice,
You can turn to a large, like, carnivorous fish, couldn't you? And
like
just
a carp
you know,
or something.
I can't
like a
swim.
shark.
Oh yeah, you can't. Yeah,
unfortunately.
swimming. Can't do swimming. Yeah, you can't transform into something that can swim until level 8, 5, something like that.
But now I can
Four, I
transform
think.
into fish.
He's one level off that, I think.
Well, he's slowly but surely getting more shapes for his wild shape. He's just thinking ahead, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
he can now turn into a tiny fish.
You can now turn into a tiny 3-inch long fish.
Sweet.
Just small enough to be a tasty snack for a larger fish or a bird or a person
I'm
or
so glad you
almost
said that,
anything.
because now I can fit into very small crevices.
If you can
If
turn
it's
into something with
underwater.
swimming. With swimming, yes,
No,
absolutely.
I just turn into a fish. I get one of them to throw me through the crack.
Fuck's sake. And then transform back at the other side. This is fucking insane. You could do that anywhere. I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah,
Like,
don't you have like a mouse or a rat?
Yeah.
Or
I'm
something?
sure. Well, I have a rat.
the only things that are listed in your list are things that are even vaguely combat capable. I mean, that's
Yeah.
even a loose comment. I don't think there's any limitation on the low end of the sizes for wild
Yeah.
shape. So I'm pretty
I
sure you could probably
remember-
turn into a tiny mouse.
Am I still here?
Yeah.
Yes, you are still here,
Yeah.
Izzy.
Can you
I
imagine
remember
an
during-
owl or a bird of prey coming down to
User
scoop
in
up
your
a
channel
mouse,
timed out.
killing it, and then suddenly realizing that it's trying to carry a half orc?
And you just grab onto its legs and it's like, shit!
Cartoon style, all of a sudden it just goes out
Is
the
it-
sky.
Is he? Sorry, not Izzy. Wiz, if Izzy reappears in the main channel and can't get any access, I can't remember. Could you drag him in? Because I've got it selected funny because of the thing.
Isn't Izzy a mod?
Yes.
Oh, of course he is. I just can't see him at the moment. Of course he is. I'm an idiot. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So I was like, can't Izzy just come in here on his own?
I'm pretty sure he can. Yeah, that's a good point. Okie dokie. So that's pretty much your thing. You don't manage as part of your activities. You don't manage to get anywhere where you can get free food or drink, except that tiny little fish that you managed to catch.
That's okay. I'll just go into the forest for some food.
Yeah, you've got time enough to do that because your time isn't dedicated. The garden work at the temple is minimal because there's not a huge amount to do, but you're there and you can go a bit there every day, do a bit of fishing, do a bit of wandering around. If there was anything else you wanted to check the price of, you can do that. And yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for you to wander out of town. There is a forest nearby. It's about a mile out, but that's easy enough for you to manage, and you can. The fact that you can wild shape if you want to means pretty much you can catch whatever food you want pretty easily. Okay, Izzy's trying to reconnect as we speak.
User joined your
there we go.
channel.
I was about to say he's in the main channel. Cool, welcome back.
Yes, everything decided to freak out on me apparently.
So where are you sleeping at the moment? If you're sort of pardon? Yes.
Me.
Yeah.
The lamp and lodestone.
Okay, because you get breakfast there. You can definitely supplement that with a combination of wild shape, your survival skill, and the fact that you're getting a breakfast and good berry. Exactly. You can feed yourself.
Food is never an issue for me.
So that basically
if
is
anyone else was starving, by the way, I could feed them.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, it's a case of for the room anyway, and that will include breakfast. That is 4 silver per night, so that's 7 nights worth. Okay. Tyanir! But you're like, fuck's sake, people.
But Daniel's just going to look for some general sort of guard work, maybe on local caravans around the area.
So you're thinking about work that's travelling work rather than like local guard work. You're thinking more like
stuff that doesn't take him too far away, obviously, but he wants to get a rough idea of just sort of the lay of the land around the town.
Okie dokie. Let me think. Most travel to and from Shadford is either between the town and the dwarven the mini settlement. It's not even really a settlement, it's more of like an outpost near the mines. There's not really any call for patrols there. Trade tends to be via the main river, which is a very slow-moving river, very wide, slow-moving river. So there's not a huge amount of requirement there. It's not a particularly dangerous area. The main danger is just general crime. There's not really a requirement for people to be guarded mercenary-wise. However, I mean, it depends how you want to do this, really. Do you want to just keep a lookout for jobs like that? Because sometimes jobs like this do turn up.
It's not even necessarily guard work, but even just physical manual labour that will get him out of the town and just...
Oh, that's easy enough.
So he wants to see around the place.
Go chopping trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, you could easily
he wants to get a rough
manual.
idea of what's around the town as well as what's in it.
Okay, yes. If you want to just simply be like a hired hand, physical labour, unskilled work, that's dead easy.
Keep him in shape as well.
Absolutely, that's fine. You're not going to get any accommodation or food with this, you wouldn't have thought. So, are you staying at the Lamp and Lodestone or the Jewels Inn?
No, I'm going to stay at the Jewels.
Okay, so that's 8 silver per night.
You'll make money, though.
You will make some money out of this, yes, but, it's a case of it's unpredictable exactly how much you're going to get, and there's going to be a bit of travelling involved. So you're going to have to put your armour to one side because you're not going to be working in your armour. So I'm just thinking, it's like, where is your stuff stored while you are doing this stuff? Okay.
If needs be, you could store it with Adrik.
Yeah, I don't think there's a big problem, but it was more a case of, how are you going to be feeding yourself and stuff like that as well. But either way, you will make some money from the work, but you're still going to be ultimately depleting your funds because you're staying at a reasonably expensive place. But, you're supplementing it a little bit to get the lay of the land. Okie dokie. What I would say is you get a few opportunities to do various work. Getting unskilled labor is not a difficult thing as long as you're able-bodied and you can lift something above your head and you don't have a criminal record or you know what I mean. As long as there's nothing obviously wrong with you about manual labor or trust, you're pretty easy to get work. You're a common race. You walk into work pretty much. And that's what it was back in the day. You know what? It's back in the day. It wasn't actually difficult to get work if you were physically capable of working.
I mean, Daniel could do guard duty kind of thing, but he's done guarding before, and it's boring as hell.
Yeah, he'd have paid better because you've got your own bloody equipment for starters, and you're trained. But yes,
Yeah, he might end up doing that. But for now, he wants to see around a bit.
Okay, so you're keeping your ears and eyes open for job opportunities that get you out and about. Okay. Definitely for a couple of days, you could easily get work hauling stone from some of the mines, or at least helping haul some of the stones from mines, loading carts, unloading carts, keeping an eye on horses so they don't bolt because it's noisy work, loading up these things with rocks, and sometimes the rocks get dropped and it spooks horses, so you know there's also looking after horses, which is easy, you know, you just keep hold of the reins. And there's various other things like that. It's a lot of heavy lifting, not a big difficult job. I mean, what's your strength again?
16.
There's very few people who are as strong as you that are doing this kind of work. 16 is an exceptionally strong person. There are dwarves there that you are out-strengthening. And lifting rocks is kind of one of the things that dwarves are supposed to know how to do pretty easy. But yeah, there are some dwarves there that you're outpowering them with your lifting.
You're juggling them.
And also, you can lift the rocks to a higher point as
Yes,
well.
I have a height advantage.
And you also have a height advantage. So they could get hold of it quicker, but you could get it higher overall. But anyway. Now this takes you all the way up toward the mines. Now what you find is that there is a small dwarven, it's more of an outpost than a settlement, actually in what you can guess as being the old mines. It doesn't have a name, it is literally just a settlement. And in there's it looks like it's been carved with bricks and stones, so the old mine has been turned into a little settlement. Now apparently you hear further through that are some of the old mines going back into the rock, but those mines, there was an old iron vein, got cleared out pretty quickly, and they've just turned this into a little settlement. And a lot of the dwarves there, they're happy to see you, they're busy getting on with their business, but they're not xenophobic, they are literally just like living in a cave. That's dwarven made.
Yeah, they just don't want to live in the town.
Yeah, they don't want to live in the town. A lot of these have, in fact, all of them that you can tell have some kind of job here. Some of them are foremen, some of them are just miners, some of them are masons. There's one gnome that actually lives with them. It's the only non-dwarf there, but he's, short, so he's okay. And he actually is assessing ores that are coming out to see if there is anything precious in there that's not metals and ores. There's apparently not many you over here, but there's enough for him to keep an eye on things like that. And every now and again they'll pull out some semi-precious rocks that he can then process. Some of them he gets sent back, some of them he does himself. So there's enough work for those guys to be getting on with it. You find out that the primary thing that's getting pulled out of the rock is copper. Pretty much, most of the copper ore gets processed and smelted nearby, and there's a small group of sturdy but crude buildings been built around just a little bit further out where the main smelteries are, where they're processing the ores into the actual copper itself. They're turning it into the bricks, the bars, and they are literally just shipping it back. And there are some work that you're doing is loading some of these bars, bringing them back to the town so that it can be loaded onto the boats, the barges, and sent down to be sent back to Cragsholm. That is, all of you would have known that exporting copper was how this settlement was originally created, Shadford. But you're the only person who's actually seen it in action. And it seems, you're not a miner, well, unless you now tell me that you are proficient at mining tools.
No.
You get the impression, it's a pretty smooth operation. There's always ores coming out, there's always empty carts going in. There's always some ore coming out. There's always some smelting going on. Even toward the evenings, as things are getting dark, the smelteries are still going. You know, they light up some lanterns and they just keep going. You know, they don't ever really stop. And you get the impression that if they did, it would take ages for them to warm up again. So they might as well just keep an eye on them and let it go through the night. So they never really stop, and they're producing copper fairly well. And it all goes back to Cragsholm. There is also a fair amount of iron coming out, but most of that you hear goes to the town itself to be used locally. A little bit of silver, again, not enough to make it worth sending back to Cragsholm. It's sent locally to mostly jewelry, but also minting. The local Lord Mayor apparently has the right to mint some coins locally. And you actually learn, just overhearing some of the other people talking, because you mention a little question to somebody, and there is actually a way you can tell silver coins that have been smelted in Shadford and silver coins that have been minted in Cragsholm. There's a tiny little different inscription around the side, which when you look, you kind of look at your silver coins, because you know whether it be in front of them or not, and you kind of like, oh yeah, some of the coins you brought with you, they are minted slightly differently. Apparently it's just so that the Cragsholm can know that the market's not being flooded or something like that. And yeah, that's pretty much what this mine does. It's mostly copper and iron and silver for local use. Give me an insight check, please.
Oh god. Holy shit.
They're debasing the currency.
Fucking hell,
Roll
nice.
a 16.
No, 15 is good. You'll be happy to know.
I rolled a 16.
Yes,
That
but
is
the
my worst
15,
skill.
that's fine. The DC of 15, a 15 is fine. You overhear a couple of things, and you pick up on a few things. There's obviously the mining operations been going on for hundreds of years now, and they get deeper and deeper into the hills, and they're slowly taking out the copper, and new veins are found, and old veins start to deplete, and it's the general cycle of a mining settlement that's found a good area to mine. You overhear from some, and you get, it's an odd impression, because they talk about some of the old tunnels and how, unfortunately, you know, his such and such's grandfather, you know, he's been a miner since his grandfather's time, even before the old tunnels all collapsed and dried out. And it's weird, because every now and again people will talk about some old tunnels, and they change the subject very quickly, but nobody seems to notice. Everyone just kind of smoothly changes the topic. Not like intentionally, it's just the topic just rapidly but smoothly slides onto something else, and they move on to a different topic. And it's just odd. It's odd, like it's like everyone has an unspoken agreement to not dwell on that, and they just move on. And you're insightful enough to spot it, but also insightful enough to think you're not 100% sure whether you want to bring it up, because you don't really know why. And this is different groups. You know, there are humans that are working in the mines. There's even an elf that's doing hard labor. He's a fucking rough-looking guy, to be fair. And all of them seem to have this same thing. Whenever it's brought up, people just kind of smoothly but quickly just end up on another subject really quickly. It's odd. Not sure what to make of it. But you do a few days of work doing mining stuff, and you kind of get a lay of the land. It's, you know, there's free traffic up and down the path, so it's not like you need to be employed to go and visit. There's even a few little gems that you probably could buy and sell from the gnome directly. Or most of the copper that gets processed into bars, that is no selling or buying of anything. That's purely for Cragsholm. It's going straight to the main city. But there are some other bits that you could probably buy and sell directly. Now, so you keep your ear to the ground for other work. You do get some work involving basic lumberjacking stuff. Nothing particularly special. And you figure you might as well explore other areas. Give me roll me a d6. Okay. I was just checking to see if you just happen to randomly bump into Niacin. So it's a coniferous forest, so it's an evergreen forest. It's quite high altitude, so the sort of humid heat of the town and the lower altitudes.
So we're high enough up that we're sort of out of the subtropical.
Sort of.
Humidity.
It's not as humid. It's still quite warm, but obviously the trees just are happy to grow as they are. The people that are around you mention that this is where they tend to do most of their logging. In the opposite direction, it actually becomes even more humid and the temperature changes quite a lot. The mountain itself actually keeps a lot of the heat gone. Further along, the mountains are considerably smaller, and they don't seem to take the heat away. So really, you get the impression. I mean, this is more geography than anything else, or geography. But you get the impression that the mountains stabilize the climate here, so that it's not too hot. It's not as hot as it should be. So yeah, you're doing various cutting down the trees. It's solid work. You're proficient in weapons, so you know how to swing an axe. So I'm not even going to bother doing a check. There's loading of the logs. There's certain areas that they're not supposed to log in for various reasons, because there are some people living out this way, and there's areas that they're supposed to be polite for. There's also hunting areas, because although there aren't any large game in here, there is apparently a species of bird which nests, and the eggs are quite prized. And the Lord Mayor has decided this is a bit of a delicacy, so a certain part of the woodland is cordoned off to allow easy sort of foraging ground for this particular kind of egg that's liked. The people you're working with don't really know anything about the specifics of this, what it's called or anything like that. They don't know what its tastes are. All they're concerned about is cutting down the trees, getting paid, and drinking ale. A lot of them. Simple work, simple minds, simple pleasures.
Curious to know, have we tasted these eggs since we did stay a night in the nice
chicken
cabin?
Eggs? I mean, you know that it's all been chicken eggs so far. Or at least eggs that are about chicken egg sized and taste about like chicken eggs.
Okay.
If it tastes like chicken, looks like chicken.
Yeah, probably is a chicken.
And looks at you like a chicken. Oh God, it's looking at me.
the egg, the yolk is looking at you.
It's the eye of Sauron in egg form.
They do actually say as well as cutting down. They cut down the trees here because these trees are much better. The more jungly sort of trees that are the other direction, a couple of days travel. Not only is it because it's too far away, but also they've heard that it's a dangerous area anyway. The snakes, spiders, all sorts of stuff. So if it wasn't for the fact that there's this slightly cooler, elevated, wooded area, there wouldn't really be that much wood in the area for them to actually get at. So there you go, a little bit of tidbit of information there. So you do that for a couple of days. You're getting paid a fair amount. I will come up with the total in a bit. Toward the end of the week, so you've done some work up near the mines, doing some lifting and various physical work. You've done some work within the coniferous woodland, doing various work there. Toward the end, and you're keeping your ears open, your eyes open, listening for opportunities. You hear of an interesting opportunity. It's definitely got the potential for involving travel. A gentleman is looking for effectively someone, preferably a group of people. And this is not a push. You can actually turn around and say, no, guys, don't worry about this. He's actually looking for someone to escort him to recover some stuff that he's lost on an expedition toward the jungle. Apparently, his two guides that gone with him, he needs to kind of find them as well again, because they kind of ran off.
Yay, more missing people.
So he needs to try and find them, and he's offering a reward. He seems like a reasonably well-spoken gentleman, and you only catch him because you happen to be, keeping an eye out for escorty sort of getting out and about, traveling kind of a work, and certainly it's going in a direction you haven't been before. I'm guessing you guys are going to meet up periodically through the week.
Oh yeah, I've no doubt that we all meet up probably every evening in the Lamp and Lodestone.
I suspect.
Exactly.
So-
Once smithing and templing's done, it's straight down the pub.
So you've heard about this particular job, not at the Lamp and Lodestone, but literally one of the people that that's doing the lumberjacking stuff has mentioned that there is somebody looking for an escort. Now, the fact that two local people who are supposed to be quite knowledgeable about the area were his guides, well, they were a combination apparently of guides and haulers to carry stuff that was owned by this guy. The fact that both of them have kind of not come back, although there's no suspicion of foul play by this guy, otherwise the guy wouldn't have come back without them, no one's especially eager to go forward with that. And I'm guessing you're probably going to mention that at the Lamp and Lodestone. Or you wait.
Yeah,
you
I'll also mention the whole weird business with the mines as well.
Yeah,
Just maybe
sounds
somebody
like
else
a
can
lot.
dig up some information about that around town where people might be less superstitious about it.
Well, honestly, I'll at some point I'll dawdle up, because it's my kin. So and I also want to go and talk to this wee gnome, see if he's got any diamonds for us. See what I can pick up in the way of diamonds, and maybe I can have a look at some of the jewels and gems we've still got left, and see what he's wanting to have a bit of a fair trade for.
Okay.
So I'll head at some point I can head up to the dwarven area, and I'll have a chit chat with them. But if anybody can find out anything in town that's a bit more
Yeah.
kin to
It
the
might,
people.
it might be worth meeting with this gentleman fella and seeing precisely what it is he wants.
Certainly.
So you're chatting
Maybe
about
something
that.
we'd be interested in.
And the door, as the Lamp and Lodestone, it's a fairly busy place, and as the evening progresses, the odd youngster that may or may not be around tend to migrate away, and a few more working men migrate in, and a few people that have had just some food for the evening migrate out. There's a passage. You notice, which is not unusual, a couple of guards come in, but instead of heading to the bar and having a drink, they look around. There's two of them. They look around, and they see you guys.
You found me.
And they look over to your table, and they clearly recognize you and head over. They're not here to drink. They're clearly here for maybe one of your group, or the group, you don't know.
I'm gonna pick up Orkon and then present him to them.
As a sacrifice.
I haven't done anything yet.
You guys, you're the ones who upped the Malisters about a week ago, weren't you? You upped the Malisters a little over a week back. You're that group that went off to the crevasse, and you went down and went into a dungeon or something. Yeah, is that you guys?
It is indeed.
Well,
Has it really been a
Captain wants to see you. I mean, we're not arresting you or anything, but it would be nice if you could. There's something maybe you can help us with. So I don't want to interrupt your drink, but it is kind of important.
Well, I half expected to hear you try to take us on.
Oh no, nothing like that. It's we need someone who
This is
can.
much more pleasant.
And he kind of looks around to see who's listening or watching, which is like half the pub. There's something that you might be able to lend a little bit of expertise in. So, let's keep it hush.
Well, we are experts.
What's the bet? And it's that dragon that got away.
A dragon did get away. So what are you guys going to do? There's these two guards there. They've not got their hands on their weapons. One of them looks a little bit, I wouldn't say vacant, but I would say he's not in the conversation.
Distracted.
No, he's just not in the conversation.
1,000-yard stare, right?
Maybe something like that. But the guy that's speaking, I mean, they're dressed the same, and he's not. He definitely wants you to come, and give me an insight.
And you know, it's one of my +5 abilities.
Okay, the guy is a bit spooked. The guy who's not in the conversation, you're not really getting much of. You just think that he's a relatively simple kind of a guy. He's just like not in charge of this. He's not been given an errand. He's just accompanying this guy. He's probably looking off thinking, "Oh, this place smells so much of alcohol. Oh, I could do with a pint." You think that he's just like that. This guy, the one that's actually doing the talking, you get the impression that he's been spooked by something, like shook up. He's holding it together, and he's not going to snap or go nuts or collapse in a puddle, but you get the impression that, I mean, you guys are not in trouble. You don't think that this is anything to do with you just think that just the nature of you guys being here. There's something he's been told to come get you about, something that he knows about. He doesn't want to say it in public.
Well, I guess, lads, it is just the evening.
Let's humor
we
him,
can
certainly.
we can humor them this evening, like, and we
Indeed,
can
your barrel isn't going anywhere.
exactly, and we can always talk up with this guy that's missing the things tomorrow, and we can talk about a leaving date, and then we can all go do a couple of things for maybe a day or two more, so that I can take a donder up to the Kin's hidey hole, as it would be, and maybe you can find out more about what we need to find out in town.
I was going to ask around at the Pantheon just in case anybody knew what happened. I'm sure if there was a death or something dramatic that would have happened, I'd pick up word from it there.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a large. I mean, obviously, you know that the Temple of the Raven are the ones that deal with anyone who's not claimed by any of the other churches or whatever. They're the ones that tend to deal with death. You have periodically, it's not very common, but you have seen them openly in the street carrying caskets. Well, I mean, I call them caskets. They're glorified doors with sides. You know what I mean? It's just basically a wood box. So death happens no more or less frequently than anywhere else you've been. It's a big town. It's a town where most people who die do get dealt with at the Temple of the Raven, which, to be honest, is actually only just to your west, actually, from where you physically are. I mean, I could actually just move you guys very quickly, and literally say, it is here to your south. That is the main sort of entranceway to the Temple of the Raven.
Okay.
And you do periodically see them taking in caskets. You know, it's not an uncommon thing. People look, and people don't want to stare, and other people sometimes move to the other side of the road. They're not, you know, there's a combination of superstition, minor curiosity, but you don't get the impression that a death would cause ripples, is what I'm trying to say.
We might as well go with the guards and see what they want.
Aye. And then
how
we can
far-
do our other bits tomorrow.
By the way, how far along am I in my my evening's drink? Am I?
I was about to ask how far gone are people.
I would say that none of you
the
are
group has some
bladdered.
heavier drinkers and some lighter drinkers.
I would
What was
say
that?
that you're probably halfway through an evening, maybe. I mean, none of you are drunk. I wouldn't have thought. I mean, Adrik might be the only exception. He might be merry because he puts 2 away as a fucking chaser to the previous one. He does. You literally do. It's like a pint is a chaser to the other previous pint, and then you might need a chaser for that one. Oh well, I'm run out. Get me some more ale.
Yeah, I always start the night with 1 and 2 for chasers.
So you guys aren't drunk, and to be fair, with an insight of 18, you wouldn't be surprised if this guard might have taken a shot of something strong to calm his nerves. You just kind of get that
Dang.
little impression.
I'll look at him and I'll go, you got any left? And then I'll think about coming.
Oh, come on, let's just You don't have to come if you don't want to. I mean, we'll deal with it, but we
I
really
will
would
say
like it.
I am very happy to come along. Let's go, guys.
All right.
And I sound
You
convincing.
don't have to brag me.
Cool.
Come on, man.
I want to finish my drink, so that's why I rolled deception.
God damn it, people. Okay, you guys, I'm guessing, unless there's any objections, you guys basically finish your drinks and follow the guards out. The guards lead you off to the east of the Lamp and Lodestone, because that's where you are. Although you're here on the map, you were at the Lamp and Lodestone. So let's move you to said Lamp and Lodestone. So that's roughly where you guys were. There's no commotion outside that you can see. I might as well answer you that question before. So it just looks like a normal kind of evening. Nothing unusual, nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary. The guards are making a fairly brisk pace, you would say.
Merrily, son.
I think it's
I'll strut.
they're definitely not wanting to dawdle, is my point.
They might not want to. I want.
They actually do slow down. If you aren't going too particularly fast, they're clearly, although they are in a rush, they're happy to just give you a bit of time if you want time. They're obviously trying to be as polite and as delicate as possible.
Well, some of us don't exactly have giant legs, guys. I don't want to sprint.
Yeah, exactly.
They want the cleric and what seems to be the handyman and the weird
bear.
and fierce bear definitely to come along.
You think this is a we want some tough guys with us. Is that your theory?
A little
Going
bit.
Could be. Well, once we're out of the Lamp and Lodestone, I'll ask. So, can you give us at least any hint on what's going on?
I think to be honest, I think it's best if the captain shows you.
That sounds very severe.
Oh, well, I've never seen anything like it. Anyway, come on.
Murder mystery.
Well.
Is it this is
And we
fucking
teleport
hilarious.
down the street.
Yes, of course. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna
If this
move
turns
you on.
out to be related to the Scarlet Killer, then I am going to be laughing my face off, because that mimicking that and causing havoc to the jewelry owner was my other hypothetical plan.
And on that note, if you can wander in there if you want. And on that note, we will continue on next week.
It looks
Whoa,
colourful.
whoa, there's all of this blood. What the fuck?
Okay, we'll continue it next week.
Someone had a party in here.
Damn! And I wasn't invited. I feel cheated.
Maybe next
Who
time.
had sex at the wrong time of the month? Jesus.
Oh. There's always one. And on that note, I'm going to stop the stream. You guys, I'm sorry about this. Yes, Foxxy is drunk in real life storm. Well, drinking, whatever.
I'm not actually.
Drinking.
No, not
You
even.
were.
I had a single pint.
Oh, that's boring. Thought you could handle
Yeah.
it. Oh well, never mind. So there you go.
Good night, stream.
And I'm going to tell you now. It's it's not quite what you're thinking.
All I know is that Daniel's now feeling that he's now not nearly armed enough to be in a room full of blood.
Same here.
Now there are guards
His
around.
armor and weapons are back in his room. He's probably got a dagger in his bow. That's probably it.
There's guards. Don't worry. There is actually, and half of them are dwarves, and one of them looks very
I
captainy.
mean, it's not to say that Daniel's not dangerous just with the dagger, but still.
Yes,
Do you know what the funny thing is?
Yeah, he's no flying halberdier at that point, though.
Adrik is always fully adorned.
So is Niacin.
because he's a weird fucking dwarf freak.
No. The
Don't
priest.
need to-
I don't need to carry much.
I've got the priest clothes, which are used for rituals, so I don them for a ritual and then take them off again and redon my armor. And the only other time I will take it off is when I go to start work at the smithy. And then as soon as I finish work at the smithy, it all goes back on again.
Fair dues. I mean,
So constantly I clunk about.
So anyway, yes, I'm gonna quit the stream now. So good night all. Cheerio.
Toodles.
sleep
Nighty
well,
night.
guys.